already know what number 1 is by process of elimination, and if you know me in real life, you already knew what number 1 was before you clicked on the video. So let's cut to the chase. The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask is not only my favorite video game of all time, it's my second favorite work of art ever made. It's better than any book, any TV show, any movie I've ever seen. There's only one thing on planet Earth that I like more. Gee, I wonder what it could be. Pretty much everything I said about Ocarina of Time could be applied here, but cranked up to 11. The story? Simple, yet unbelievably investing. The world? Incredibly packed with things to discover. The dungeons? Insanely inventive, challenging, and satisfying. The gameplay? Actually, that's pretty much a 180 from Ocarina's simplicity. Majora's Mask offers 3 incredibly fun transformation masks and a unique 3-day time limit that enhances the game rather than detracts from it. This time limit can make or break the game for most people, but for me, it's too compelling to pass up and the game wouldn't be the same without it. Also, this game is my 2 favorite items in the entire Zelda series, the Goron mask and the bunny hood. They make movement and exploration so much fun, and to be honest, I probably spend more time in this game as a Goron than I do as a human. There's just something about rolling around the world, collecting the masks, and discovering people's routine that I just have a blast with. Much like Wind Waker, I play this game just for the fun of it sometimes, even on files I've already 100% completed. But with that said, it's also just so good at being dark and atmospheric. With all due respect to Ocarina of Time, this game is, in my opinion, the best allegory for growing up in the Zelda series. Link starts out his quest by doing something as basic and childish as helping a monkey and rescuing a princess, before being thrust into the roles of a dead Goron hero and a well-known guitarist. Finally, Link journeys through the incredibly grim Ikana Canyon, where the dead linger in eternal suffering, and this game goes from decently dark to intensely grim. Out of all the Zelda games, this one probably works in the biggest upward trajectory in the entire series, where it just gets better and more investing the longer you play it. But do you want to know the real reason I love this game so much? More than any other game I've played, no, more than any other work of fiction I've ever experienced, I care. I care about the people I'm saving and the world I'm putting back in order. I'm motivated to help these people because they feel like actual people with ambitions, dreams, and goals. And helping them out makes for the richest, most satisfying gameplay I've ever experienced. But do you want to know the even realer reason I love this game so much? Every single time I replay it, I discover something new. There's always some hidden conversation or event that I haven't yet found, just waiting to be discovered on every single playthrough. This game has a Metal Gear Solid level of attention to detail, and it's phenomenal. Truthfully though, I could never do this game justice with words, and I don't think anyone can. Matthew Matosis put it best when he said that even if you know practically everything there is to know about this game going in, the sum of all these parts come together into something that's still well worth experiencing. By all accounts, this game that started out as an Ocarina of Time expansion with a 1-year development cycle should not be widely considered to be one of the greatest video games ever made, but it just is. Over the past 5 years of playing through these 5 games over and over again, my ranking has gone back and forth so much. Skyward Sword and Wind Waker were both at number 2 at one point, Twilight Princess was dead last for quite some time. It's been all over the place and it took me forever to come up with what I consider my definitive ranking. But for 5 years, there's always been one constant. Majora's Mask has always been my number 1, and I don't know if anything will ever dethrone it. Breath of the Wild looks like it might come close, but I don't know if it can match the fun, the atmosphere, the maturity, and the deep emotional impact of the masterpiece known as The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask.
Let's be honest, you knew what number 1 was going to be before you clicked on the video. Spirited Away is not a movie. It is an ethereal, immersive, unforgettable experience that leaves you a changed person by the end. From the moment I first saw this movie, I knew that it was a masterpiece and the best animated film I had ever seen. But for the life of me, I could not figure out why. The plot seems really basic at first, right? Chihiro and her parents find some food. They eat the food. They become pigs. Now she has to get a job cleaning a bathhouse and wacky hijinks ensue. It doesn't seem special on paper, so why was this movie speaking to me in a way that no other movie had before? Well, I think I finally figured it out, so allow me to attempt to describe my feelings about this movie even though words could never really do it justice. Spirited Away is a movie about growth. Chihiro starts the movie out very sheltered and scared of everything. But through struggles, hardships, smiles, and tears, she matures into a confident young woman who helps not only herself and her parents, but the people around her. It is through her unwavering compassion that she saves Haru and No-Face, setting them both free in the process. Every victory she achieves feels earned because the movie takes its time to establish the perils and wonders of the world she now inhabits. And when I say establish, I don't mean through needless exposition. The movie simply shows us one of the most creative, beautiful, endlessly expressive fictional worlds ever conceived, and moves forward with the confidence that we can pick up the rules of this world as we go along, just like the main character does. This makes for an immersive experience that never talks down to its audience. There is no villain in this movie, just real people with easily understood relationships and emotions. The sheer power this movie can convey through raw simplicity, from Chihiro pulling garbage out of a river spirit, to sitting in a field and breaking down crying as the weight of her situation overwhelms her, to sitting on a train and being overtaken by the serene ripples of the water and the spirits passing by. You know what? Nothing I could ever say could do this movie justice. It's just magic. Pure, unfiltered, real-life magic. If you haven't seen it, just watch it, and then you'll realize why no other movie could have topped it on this list. The Incredibles is just barely my favorite animated movie, the one I drop everything to rewatch on the most regular basis, but Spirited Away is the best. There has never been, and probably never will be, anything quite like it. And there's something very special about the only traditionally animated film on this list being the best one of them all. Even as a little kid with no real semblance of taste or quality, I always knew there was something special about Beauty and the Beast. Everything about it was captivating to my 5-year-old brain, from the songs to the visuals to the romance, and it just kept getting better as the years went on. This is Disney's magnum opus. It's not as grand as Lion King, but it's practically perfect in every way. The romance between Belle and the Beast, which seems impossible to achieve from the outset based on their differences, progresses in such a natural, well-paced, intelligent manner. Their chemistry becomes apparent after he saves her life, and from there, every decision either of them makes is in service to making the other feel happy. They become better people thanks in no small part to each other's influence. It's like Megamind, but even better fleshed out and developed. Everything is so well set up for the most believable, intricate romance Disney has ever produced to bloom in the most beautiful manner possible. On top of that, the side characters are fantastic, the castle is so intricately designed, the songs are wonderful and express the desires of each character expertly. The opening song gives me life. It is musical theater incarnate, setting the stage for everything and introducing us to the main character, setting, and antagonist perfectly. Be Our Guest warms us up to the castle and makes it feel like home after all the disturbing imagery we've just witnessed, which is exactly how Belle feels. Gaston's influence over the town is illustrated through his titular song and the mob song. And oh yeah, as if it wasn't good enough that this movie gives us the most beautiful love story ever told, we also get the supreme meme dispensary that is Gaston.
When I was a boy, I ate eggs every morning to help me get beautiful.
My favorite works of fiction are the ones that can flawlessly tell a story and hit you hard with emotional, powerful moments, while also having that extra fun factor. It's why I love Whiplash. Intricate, perfect narrative, and Fletcher is just hilarious to watch. It's why Majora's Mask is kinda my favorite thing on planet Earth. Dark, mature, subtle story with Goron rolling, cow abducting, guitar shredding, fun. And here, not only do we get the same amount of incredibly enjoyable zaniness and energy that the other Disney movies have, but we have a rich, mature, expertly told love story where every narrative beat and character action is believable. From Belle's sorrow after throwing her life away for her father, to Gaston's continuously more menacing demeanor, to the Beast's reluctant expression when he decides to let Belle go because he values her life over that of his own, because he truly has finally learned to love. Oh my god, it's just flawless. I guess I could say I don't like the slapstick and LeFou constantly falling over gets real old, but honestly, who cares? Beauty and the Beast is a momentous achievement and perhaps the greatest animated movie I've ever seen. It's so easy to see why this was the first animated movie to receive a Best Picture nomination at the Oscars. It's magnificent and easily the highlight of the entire Disney pantheon. Every time I witness the tale as old as time sequence and see those little painted angels looking down at the two from on high, leading to that incredible pan shot past the chandelier with our leads fully entranced by the love they now feel for one another, as this gorgeous song echoes through this absolutely mesmerizing ballroom, I kind of forget I'm watching a movie. It shouldn't be possible to capture a moment this stunningly beautiful on film, but they did. As long as I live, this sequence and this entire movie will always hold the key to my heart. Where do I begin? Everything this show is and represents is perfectly summed up with this song. It's a gorgeous, passionate ballad about the joy of summer and the inspiration it can awaken in others. Much like my animated feature ranking, my number 2 pick is probably my favorite song, but Summer, Where Do We Begin is simply the best. I love it with all my heart. I know it seems like I only put Fairy Godmother in the number 1 spot because of I Need a Hero, and that's true, but I'm sorry. For once in my lists, I just had to rank my absolute favorite choice over the one that's probably the best. Honestly though, it just blows my mind how well written and organically woven into the storyline this villain really is. Fairy Godmother is behind everything. Fiona's imprisonment, the attempts to get rid of Shrek, the plot to take over Far Far Away, all of it. Her deeply rooted manipulations impact nearly every aspect of Shrek 2's plot, and through it all, she manages to be intimidating and hilarious.
My diet is ruined. I hope you're happy.
She always has the upper hand in every exchange, with every character, and yet she's so hysterical throughout all of it. Her two-faced persona, depending on who she's talking to, makes for a villain that's hateable and likable at the same time. Really, the best kind of villain there is. I also obviously love the way she subtly manipulates Shrek by identifying his insecurities and convincing him to give up. She managed to adapt to Shrek's plan of becoming handsome and formulate her own counterplan after like 5 seconds. That's some queen shit right there. Jennifer Saunders kills every single aspect of this character, from her comedy to her sinister nature to her insane vocals, and everything obviously culminates in the scene that taught 6-year-old me what cinema could truly accomplish. Her vocal performance of I Need a Hero defined a generation, and to this day stands out as the greatest, most well-integrated musical performance ever put into a film. I will not compromise on that front. Everything about her plan checks out. She manages to be hilarious and intimidating at the same time. She delivers us a godlike sequence. Oh my god, she's just the best DreamWorks villain. Delete your account if you disagree. Good night, Tri-State Area. When I think about how much I love Tales of Ba Sing Se, this segment is the one that comes to mind first. Surprising, I know, but I can't help it. The tale of Zuko, to me, is the most beautiful and captivating overall part of the episode. It's not as strong as the ending of Iroh's tale, but when taking the parts as a whole, I have to give this one the edge, even though both Zuko and Iroh's parts are 10 out of 10s. The reason this part stuck with me for so many years is because it's the first time I can remember seeing Zuko truly happy. It was genuinely moving to see him grow to care for this girl despite his reluctance to go out with her. It's fun to see him try and act normal and go on a date with someone, and the awkwardness isn't off-putting or embarrassing, it's really charming. Especially since Jin never gets frustrated with Zuko's inability to act normal on a date. She's charmed by his aloofness and his attempts to juggle, which results in property damage. You can feel her passion when she takes him to the fountain, as well as her disappointment when the lights are all out. And here we see Zuko, who hardly ever does a kind thing for anyone other than his uncle, put everything on the line and firebend these lamps just for the sake of making this girl he hardly knows happy. I mean, that smile he gives her, damn! He didn't just warm these lamps, he warmed my heart. Aww. It's charming when he gets out of kissing Jin by using a coupon, and I love the fact that when she does kiss him, he kisses her back. Like, deep down, he does want a simple life with her here, even though he keeps telling himself that his true destiny is to capture the Avatar and return home. This story ties into his character arc magnificently, and it really left an impression on me because of how happy Jin made Zuko. I had never felt more betrayed by a fictional character than I did with Zuko in Crossroads of Destiny, and all throughout the first half of season 3, where Zuko came to grips with his unhappiness with his new life, I thought about Jin and how great things could have been if Zuko had chosen that path. I'm glad things worked out for him in the end, but when I first saw this episode, I was simply in awe of this part. It gave me so many new insights into Zuko as a character, and while it inevitably had to end in a bittersweet way, I don't know. I feel like Iroh asking how the date went, only for Zuko to tell him it was nice, was still a satisfying conclusion for this short story. The tale of Zuko will always be my favorite tale of Ba Sing Se. Revenge of the Sith is one of my favorite film scores in cinematic history. It's operatic and supreme in ways that so few soundtracks truly are. It's fitting since this movie depicts the most important and heartbreaking events in the entire saga, meaning it would be a Herculean task to accurately capture such feelings through music. And yet, John Williams rises to the occasion so effortlessly. Sideways and I had wildly different rankings for this film, but in the end, he graciously suggested that I put it at number 1 anyway, which was awesome.
This score has always felt like the black sheep of the family, so to speak, when it came to the grand scheme of Star Wars, at least for me. While it has these epic moments like Anakin becoming Vader and the conflict between Windu and Palpatine and personal favorite Padme's funeral, I think this film introduces the least amount of recurring new musical material when it comes to the whole 9-film saga, aside from Rise of Crapwalker. But what that means is that this ends up becoming the ultimate version of Williams trying to occupy and develop the musical space that he's created with the other 5 films, which up to this point were the only ones he'd scored. Like, while it is one of the few new pieces of music introduced in this film, when you listen to that epic duel between Anakin and Obi-Wan in the last half hour of the film, it really feels like Williams is flexing as hard as he can. Which, for me, highlights how important it is to remember that when you're looking at music, you have to keep in mind your own perspective. While I absolutely love going through all 9 films and trying to hear all the musical connections that Williams has crafted over a 40-year span, in a way, it feels like when it comes to this film, you really have to step back and think about how the music is speaking to you. So while this film wasn't specifically my number 1, I want to know why you loved this score.
From the pulse-pounding opening scene that perfectly syncs with the battle, it's clear that Williams is kicking the intensity up a notch. The music contributes to such an exciting opening act to the film, and it just gets more musically enticing as it goes along, like when Anakin lands the cruiser. Ready? Also, Grievous's entrance on Utapau is such fire, and I have no idea why. Also, the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise is scored so hauntingly and eerily, it's just perfect. There's a few other great touches here and there, like the build-up to
Yo, what's up?
and the subtle reincorporation of the Emperor's theme when Palpy reveals himself, but nothing compares to the chilling eeriness of Padme's ruminations. This is the start of the greatest trend in Revenge of the Sith score. The way it tells the story by accompanying sequences with no dialogue. It's such a phenomenal scene because it doesn't have any George Lucas dialogue, just powerful, emotional visuals accompanied by this tremendous, harrowing score. And from the moment Mace Windu barges into Sheev's office, the score is practically perfect for the rest of the film. This music track, entitled I Am the Senate, that's not a joke, it is literally called that, is insane. It is horror music. The monster has been unleashed and he is on a killing spree. The music sets up that idea so well. The part where Anakin strolls in sounds phenomenal, and the best part has to be when Mace gets his hand chopped off. It slays me, and it's followed up by the Emperor's theme growing in volume and intensity as it goes along. Order 66 is absolutely phenomenal. It's tragic to an insane extent and completely carries the scene. Every bit of sadness is punctuated perfectly by the music. There's such a sense of finality through Bail Organa's line, and so it is. And I think the score winding down at that point plays a big role. I love the way Society is scored. This whole scene is operatic and intense and absolutely wonderful. And I'm So Sorry is one of my favorite musical moments in film, capturing Anakin's internal conflict and regret over all his dark deeds. It is heart-wrenching and the quintessential example of the power of score over script. A path I can't follow also tells the story way better than words ever could. So it's a shame it has to accompany words, especially words like,
"Don't make me kill you."
The score captures the broken friendship between Anakin and Obi-Wan in a way words could never. And it all leads into one of the greatest scores to any fight in history ever. It is freaking insane how amazing this music is. Also, Duel of the Fates honestly fits Yoda vs. Sidious way more than it fit the Maul fight in my opinion, since this is literally a duel for the fate of the galaxy. So that's great, but even that doesn't compare to the finale of the Anakin and Obi-Wan duel. Oh my God! The aftermath of this duel is hauntingly beautiful and emotionally moving, and the way the dramatic chanting overtakes the Force theme during Padme's death and Vader's rebirth, it's fire! Revenge of the Sith is a masterclass in film scoring. It gives each scene way more weight and emotional resonance than they could possibly have otherwise. And it's also exciting and captivating to listen to outside of the context of the film. Even though Revenge of the Sith is far from my favorite Star Wars movie, and I don't think it's great overall, it has, in my opinion, the absolute best score in Star Wars history. It's everything I could possibly want in a film score and more. I adore every single thing about this song. The visuals, the vocals, the lyrics, the melody, everything. It's like the Spirited Away of Steven Universe songs. Just this precious, ethereal, unforgettable experience that I absolutely cherish. I listen to it whenever I'm overwhelmed by anxiety, and it always manages to calm me down. It's flawless, and it's one of the few songs in the show that feels like it was given all the length it needed in order to get its message across. Trust me, even if you've never seen the show before, you need this song in your life. On my most recent viewing of this film, it finally hit me. The Prince of Egypt might actually be the best animated film ever made. It's honestly impossible to do such an unexpectedly majestic work of genius justice with words, but I'll try. This is the only DreamWorks film that feels like a completely uncompromised vision. A movie that tells the exact story it wants to tell without any executive interference. There's a large celebrity voice cast and there's some comedic relief, yet neither of these detract from such a profound and sufficiently mature retelling of the story of Moses. Nothing is sugar-coated, nothing is dumbed down or softened. It really is the best possible adaptation of this story. This movie uses the rich language of cinema to convey ideas and themes just through the visuals alone. It's tremendously profound for a movie intended for younger audiences. The songs range from great to phenomenal, not a single bad track to be found. They contribute so much to the size and scope of the story, taking full advantage of the medium of animation in the process. Even the weakest song in the movie made my top 30 villain songs list, though to be fair, it'd probably get kicked off by Kick It Up a Notch from Starship now that I've seen that, but I digress. The characters are fantastic, with the growing rift between Moses and Ramses coming across as being so heartbreakingly genuine. The sequences and set pieces this movie shows us, from Passover to the parting of the Red Sea to everything in between, do such an amazing job of immersing us in this grand, tragic, and profoundly human story. The true miracle of this movie is how accessible it is to people of all faiths. I've seen so many people say that they adore this movie despite being atheist, and as a Christian who thinks 90% of Christian media is garbage, it's absolutely wonderful to see a movie tell a biblical story with such respect, finesse, and faithfulness to the core of what made the original story so impactful. There's so much to be said about this film, and I could never say it all. The Prince of Egypt is easily the greatest DreamWorks movie of all time. It isn't even close. Nothing will ever top this bold, risky, beautifully animated, artistically driven magnum opus of an amazing studio. Nothing except the Madagascar Penguins and A Christmas Carol, baby! Remember when I said I'd tell you where on the list this would go if it actually counted? It's number one. It's a masterpiece. Unironically, the greatest thing to ever come out of the Madagascar franchise, this holiday classic endures as a testament to the wonder and artistry of the medium of film. Incredible. I watch this Academy Award for Best Picture winning short film every Christmas, Hanukkah, Halloween, Kwanzaa, and also all the other days of the year. John Wick wishes it had action this good. Gex wishes it was this funny.
Seriously, this is
like a luau at Mel Blanc's house.
At one point, the old lady is watching a football game on TV, but she's wearing an Alex the Lion foam finger. Did she not have a foam finger for the football team she's watching? Why even wear a foam finger? She's alone in her house. The Madagascar Penguins in a Christmas Camper tells important life lessons about family, eggnog, how mail systems work in apartment buildings, and it is for all these reasons why Mike's New Car is the best DreamWorks movie ever made. Literally, what more could you possibly want out of a movie? The Incredibles is as close to perfection as Pixar has ever gotten. I genuinely can't think of a single thing wrong with this movie outside of its dated animation on the background humans. Like, yikes, bruh. Otherwise, this is Pixar and Brad Bird at the top of their game, delivering a shockingly mature and adult script with a hefty dose of subtext to pick up on. From the domestic turmoil to the critique of insurance company practices to the unflinching amount of death that gets the dramatic weight it deserves, The Incredibles does not let up with its explicitly adult themes and story. It provides a bleak yet ultimately captivating look at a man trapped in a state of perpetual mediocrity, longing to break free and recapture the glory and acclaim of his youth, until he finally learns to live in the present and appreciate his amazing, supportive family. Oh, and they're all superheroes. That's just the icing on the deepest, richest, most delicious cake you'll ever eat and Pixar will ever bake. The way this movie transforms from a compelling, committed character drama in its first act to a gripping superhero adventure in its second and third is simply mind-blowing. Like, it's not enough that this animated movie released by Disney is a legit amazing character drama, but it also happens to be the best superhero movie ever. Don't debate me on that, you know it's true. The Incredibles is the absolute gold standard for the medium of animation, and while I think Ratatouille pushed its artistic boundaries a little further and deserves the title of Pixar's magnum opus, The Incredibles is nonetheless my pick for Pixar's best film. I don't know how Brad Bird does it, but there's no adult-oriented Pixar films before he joins the studio, and after he joins, there's 2. Coincidence? I think not! Also, isn't it wild that this is kind of a spy movie, and Cars 2 is attempting to be that? It's interesting, like, Pixar can only make the worst spy movie of all time, or the best spy movie of all time. There's literally no in-between whatsoever. Huh, weird. Yeah, this shouldn't come as much of a surprise. Lilo and Stitch is just the best Disney film to come out of the 2000s, and one of my favorite Disney films in general. I didn't actually grow up with it, but man, I wish I did. It's just incredible in every way. It's from the duo who would go on to make How to Train Your Dragon for DreamWorks, and by God, they've just cracked the code on how to make perfectly paced movies about an unlikely friendship between a quirky loner and a seemingly vicious creature who turns out to be good deep down. The bond between Stitch and Lilo is absolutely precious, and it's such a brilliant pairing. Lilo is a troubled, destructive child who's hard to deal with a lot of the time, and Stitch is like a twisted alien counterpart, a being who was created as a tool for destruction. But seeing them come together, seeing Lilo finally find a friend who appreciates her quirky tendencies, seeing Stitch develop and find purpose beyond what he was created for, all of this is just absolutely brilliant, funny, and heartwarming stuff. If that was all this movie was, it would already be pretty great. But of course, it doesn't stop there. This movie also gives us this heartbreaking story about a broken family that's portrayed so uncomfortably realistically. They bicker and fight just like any sisters, but they're both having trouble adjusting to the fact that Nani basically has to be Lilo's parent now. It's not a relationship either of them want, but they have to adjust to it so Lilo doesn't get taken away. The conflict in this movie is so tense because it's so realistic, and it's not the sort of thing you ever see depicted in Disney movies. And that Aloha Oi scene is just so devastating in so many ways. Oh my god, it's just one of the best scenes Disney has ever made. I really only have good things to say about this movie. It's funny, it's heartwarming, it has amazing watercolor art direction, the characters are all likable, and nearly all of them have great arcs over the course of the story. I'd be lying if I said the human stuff wasn't better than the alien stuff, but I think the fact that they blend together as well as they do is a testament to how expertly constructed this movie is. This is one of my favorite Disney movies and easily their best film to come out in the 2000s. This was certainly one of Disney's rockiest decades ever, but I think it all came together in the end, thanks in no small part to fantastic films like this.
Toy Time Galaxy, Luigi's Purple Coins. Everything great about this game distilled into one level. An immensely fun and challenging timed mission that's also rather open-ended at the same time. There's 150 coins here, and you only need 100, so take whatever path you want. Go for the hard ones, or don't. It's all up to you. This mission is so creative, so fun, so bombastic, so challenging. It's got the most creative use of the purple coins by far. It's one big tribute to Luigi. It was so good that Galaxy 2 entirely ripped it off. Oh my god. It's just the perfect mission, and my absolute favorite in the game. Yeah, we all knew this was gonna be number one. A loving, explicit tribute to ABBA, dedicated to the fact that Cody built a boat that looks entirely like Gwen's face. You can't make this shit up. This song alone almost justified Gwen's elimination, because it's just that fantastic. It's insanely catchy, it's musically distinct, it's visually distinct, the vocals are all on point, everyone looks really good in those outfits. Yes, I said everyone. Courtney gets to pop off for a second with her vocals. There's a great visual gag with Duncan hammering in the final nail in Team Amazon's coffin. I don't even know what else to say, man. Everything about this song works. I even made a YouTube poop of it back in the day, which should tell you all you need to know. I love We Built Gwen's Face, from its wacky premise to its flawless execution. It is easily the best Total Drama World Tour song. And it's probably the quintessential example of Cody managing to weasel his way out of singing. But you know what? He built the subject of this song, so I can't even be mad. Good job, Cody. You have officially redeemed all the songless nights we spent together. Thank you for gracing us with this amazing power ballad. Pursue a career on Broadway, Cody. You could make it. Good night, Tri-State area. Where do I even begin? Whisper of the Heart hit me so insanely hard in so many ways. It made me feel seen in a way so few movies ever do. The last time I felt this way watching something was when I first saw Lady Bird 4 years ago, so it's been a while. But wow, special doesn't begin to describe how I feel about this movie. I didn't know anything about it going in, and when it opens up with Country Roads, I was like, okay, what the fuck is this? The main character in this movie constantly rewrites the lyrics to Country Roads in her spare time. That sounds like a joke, but the movie genuinely gets me super invested in these variations on this song as it goes along, displaying Shizuku's blossoming writing prowess despite her lack of faith in herself. My favorite scene in the whole movie, my favorite scene in all of Ghibli is just her and Seiji performing the song together, only for his grandfather and his friends to walk in and start performing with them. It's just a magical moment that's well built up to, and a beautiful way for the two leads to come together. Shizuku and Seiji's chemistry over the course of the film is incredibly natural, and the way they continually inspire each other to become great artists is so beautiful. And that's really what's at the core of this film. The struggle to create something, to be an artist, despite believing that you're not good enough. Shizuku grapples so hard with so many immensely relatable struggles regarding her writing, constantly having to ask herself, is it good enough to show others? Is it worth it to keep pursuing this? Am I good enough to be with someone who seems to have everything put together while I have no idea what I want to do with my life? I'm in this movie and I don't like it. I'll fully admit that I probably connected to this film so much because of how much I saw my own struggles with writing in Shizuku. But regardless, I feel like this is the kind of film anyone can relate to and see themselves in. Anyone who's anxious about their life and what the future holds will probably derive a ton of value from this film. And even besides that, it's just a really charming slice of life story. The romance is sweet and endearing, the characters are all enjoyable, the animation and score really stick out and create such beautiful moments, even by Ghibli standards. The plot is very simple, especially during the first half, but it's never aimless, it all still feels purposeful. And yeah, at the end of the day, this is an incredibly well-realized and beautiful depiction of someone who's just trying to figure out their place in the world and discover their self-worth through their art. I cried multiple times throughout the course of the story, even at parts that I doubt were intended to be sad, simply because I felt them deep down in my soul. It's just beautiful. Not just my favorite Ghibli movie of all time, not just my favorite animated movie of all time, but one of my top 5 favorite movies ever made. I don't think it's as good as Kaguya or Spirited Away, but it honestly means more to me than both of those movies combined. And after what I just said about both of those movies,
That's some inconceivably high praise. It broke my heart to learn that this was the only movie that Yoshifumi Kondo got to direct before his untimely death. He was apparently expected to be Miyazaki and Takahata's eventual successor, and looking at how incredible this film turned out, it's easy to see why. I really hope all of you immediately watch this movie. It would genuinely mean the world to me if more people got to experience it and fall in love with it the way I did. I can't believe I unironically love Country Roads now. What the hell did you do to me, movie? Yeah, you knew this one was coming. The old Emperor sucks. It's some lady in makeup that they superimposed chimp eyes onto. The voice actor honestly sounds bored. We're supposed to believe this guy is above Darth Vader, but James Earl Jones is running circles around this guy's delivery, both in terms of intimidation and actual acting. I'd like to believe that if I saw this movie for the first time in 1980, without knowing anything about Ian McDiarmid's portrayal of the Emperor, I still wouldn't be impressed. I'm sorry, I know this weird off-brand f***ing Dr. Bob-ass version of Palpatine has its fans, but I'm not one of them. And even if you like this portrayal of Palpatine, I have no idea how you would ever justify keeping it in over the Ian McDiarmid version. It just doesn't make sense continuity-wise to have this abomination in favor of the real Emperor, who was established as such later on in this trilogy. It's not like this is a fairly unnecessary prequels deep cut like Boba Fett's voice is. This is just a matter of bringing this movie in line with its direct sequel, and the iconic portrayal of this character that Star Wars fans universally love. The special edition Emperor, or should I say, the actual Emperor, or should I call him Darth Sidious, is oozing with evilness. If you're watching these movies in release order and this is your first exposure to Palpatine, you immediately get why this guy is above Vader. And yeah, they slightly alter the dialogue since now Vader asks how it's possible that Luke is the offspring of Anakin. I mean, hey, it's in line with Revenge of the Sith's events, and it's easy to assume that Vader is lying to Palpatine here. He knows Palpatine was lying about Padme's death. He literally tells Luke in this movie that they can overthrow Palpatine. He actively knows that Palpatine's a lying piece of shit at this point, and he's just feigning ignorance about Luke's origins in this scene. The Sith are all about lies, deception, and betrayal. And so none of the dialogue changes in the scene are a problem. They all make sense. I don't want to hear any arguments with this change in particular. If you're showing someone the original versions of these films as their first exposure to Star Wars, pause Empire when you get to this scene, boot up Disney Plus, show them the new version, and then continue on with the original. Actually, now that I think about it, you could probably just get away with showing them the special edition of Empire. It really doesn't have any problems outside of that one Bring My Shuttle line that I'm still mad about. I love literally everything about Persona Q's intro. Like, seriously, it's the only Persona intro where I can't find a single thing wrong with it. The gorgeous melding of Persona 3's blue and Persona 4's yellow, followed by the confetti raining from the heavens as we see every iconic silhouette from both games cast, would probably be the highlight of any other Persona intro. But here, it's just the tip of the iceberg. We also get the striking colors of each Persona 3 and 4 veteran looking forward, as the music subtly shifts into something more akin to Persona 4's soundtrack once these characters show up. Plus, we get the absolutely incredible sight of all these interactions between the 3 and 4 cast, punctuated perfectly by the music and the iconic "This cannot fail." I mean, God, this is also heartwarming. Junpei and Yosuke buddy up, the girls forming the new team, Rise helping a nervous Fuka break out of her shell, Kanji catching Koromaru, oh my God, it's so precious, I can't! Teddy taking Aigis out dancing. Do you even have a soul if you dislike this intro? I understand this is all mainly fan service, but it's gorgeously realized, visually striking, wholesome as heck fan service. The rest of the intro is no slouch either, showcasing dark imagery that fits each music beat perfectly, only for this Avengers Endgame style lineup of all our favorite heroes, all letting their colors fly high to take center stage. It's incredible how the song Maze of Life manages to fit a wholesome celebration while simultaneously getting you pumped for the battles coming your way. Ingenious. I adore this song to no end. To top it all off, I don't know who this one girl is since I've never played the game, but she eats a corn dog in one bite, and that is adorable. Overall, my favorite Persona intro of all time, and another one of my favorite intros in video game history. I thought it was amazing before I played Persona 3 and knew who half these characters were, and I think it can even be appreciated by people who haven't played 3 or 4. It's just perfect.
Well, I knew this was coming.
It really wasn't even close. Mitchell's is a high 8 out of 10, bordering on a 9, and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is a solid 12 out of 10, bordering on 13. This movie is everything. It's the single best superhero movie to come out of the 2010s. It's got the coolest 3D animation style out of every movie I've ever seen. The jokes consistently get a laugh out of me even after my 20th viewing. The action is insanely fluid, exciting, and visceral. The characters feel so real through their emotional baggage and their little quirks. The background details in this movie keep piling up to an insane degree. The score sells everything. The danger, the heroism, the sheer euphoria of it all. I mean, fuck, man. He took a bagel. What else is there to say? Movies like this just don't happen. A film where every possible element is cranked up to 12 on the quality scale, and they all manage to blend together perfectly into something greater than the sum of its already excellent parts. And it's a fucking Spider-Man movie. Not some obscure indie art house film where the creator could tell the story they wanted to free of a huge studio's influence. No, man. This came from Sony, the studio that brought you the Emoji Movie, and the conglomerate that's probably extremely protective of the Spider-Man brand.
It's not always about the money, Spider-Man.
And they just let some talented people go off and weave this absolutely phenomenal tale, free of all the usual tropes and trappings that bog Sony's other films down. It all just seems way too good to be true, and yet here it is. An instant classic that we're still gonna be talking about 50 years from now. The undisputed magnum opus of Sony Pictures Animation. If this is an indication of what the future holds for the studio, then I, for one, can't wait to see more. Seriously though, please don't fuck up the sequel. Good night, Tri-State Spider-Verse. Yep, no surprises here. Moana is the best Disney movie that came out during the 2010s, and the only one in my opinion that can truly stand toe-to-toe with their best films during the 90s. It just feels so authentic, like it's not trying to subvert expectations or trick you, nor is it reacting to what's popular at the time, be it stuff from other Disney movies or stuff in the real world. It's just a beautiful, simple, engaging standalone story with the best protagonist of any Disney movie. Yes, I really mean that. Moana is such an engaging heroine because of how apparent her weaknesses are, and watching her overcome these weaknesses is such a profound display of her strength. Imagine not having weaknesses and just being able to fight real good and be a girl boss. That's not strength. There's no growth here. This is worthless. Sometimes the strongest characters are the weakest ones, and such is the case with Moana. She constantly screws up either by overestimating her own abilities or just not really knowing what she's doing most of the time. She just knows that she has to do it because the ocean chose her, and because she believes she's the only one who can deliver Maui and restore the heart in order to save her people. But she's burdened with so much imposter syndrome as a result of this, constantly doubting the idea that she's right for this task. But she constantly pushes past her self-doubt and becomes stronger and more capable as a result. She doesn't give in to her ever-present fear of failure, and instead becomes the hero the ocean knew she was deep down, as she ultimately saves the day not through her fighting prowess or even her voyaging skills, but through her unrelenting compassion. Her empathy for Taka and the moment they share right before she restores the heart is one of the most breathtaking moments in any Disney movie. Same goes for the I Am Moana sequence, where she finally comes to terms with who she is after not being sure throughout her entire life up to that point. She's such an amazingly realized protagonist with such incredible tangible growth over the course of the film. Plus she's incredibly funny and plays so well off of Maui. This guy, man. This guy right here. It's important to get both Moana and Maui right because the whole movie basically plays off of their interactions. Not only are said interactions extremely charming and funny, but they really hit you in the feels when they need to. And that's because of how much depth and pain Maui hides underneath his aloof exterior. His backstory is really raw and tragic even for Disney. And understanding that he did everything for humanity as a way of coping with the fact that his parents just threw him into the sea as a baby, it's messed up. But he learns to grow past this and come to terms with who he is on the inside as well, independent of his status as a demigod savior. Watching Moana and Maui help each other overcome their insecurities and bond is just fucking phenomenal. This movie has some cliche elements and juvenile humor holding it back from true perfection, but at the end of the day, Moana remains my favorite Disney movie. Not the best, mind you, but my favorite, for so many reasons that I could prattle on about for days. The characters are so fun and have so much subtle depth to them, from Moana to Maui to the ocean. Get it? The ocean has depth, get it? That's comedy, baby. Also, this movie's really funny. The animation is consistently stellar and gorgeous. The action scenes from the Kakamora battle to the Taka confrontation are super well put together and exciting. This movie has the best songs in any Disney movie since Hunchback. Yeah, I said what I said. Where You Are is a great energetic opener. How Far I'll Go is an incredibly compelling I Want song. You're Welcome is a bop that's just filled with infectious energy, great lyrics, and super fun visuals. And, of course, I Am Moana, as I mentioned before, is such a gorgeously realized sequence. Man, I just love this movie to death. I will never get tired of rewatching it. This is such a phenomenally realized film and one of Disney's greatest accomplishments throughout their entire history. I know most people just think this one is good, or even great, and that's about it for them. That's totally fine. But I, for one, think this is a masterpiece.
It's a masterpiece. It's a masterpiece.
Please, for the love of Tafiti, watch it if you haven't already. I think that's about it. I really hope I didn't forget to talk about anything. Oh yeah, this is embarrassing. How did I forget? I wanted to point out how uncomfortable Tafiti's fingers make me. Like, I know that's plants, but it kind of looks like green Cheeto dust, and I don't like it. Looking at Cheeto dust on fingers makes me uncomfortable for some reason. This is the only thing wrong with Toy Story 2, which is otherwise a perfect movie. I don't like Al's Cheeto dust fingers. Okay, now that's everything. Good night, Tri-State Area. Oh wait, right, there's a crab in this movie. Huh. Yeah, I kinda like the crab. May or may not have based my entire online brand around him after seeing the movie for the first time. May or may not have hosted a YouTube poop collab and a reanimated collab around his scene. May or may not have made an 82-minute feature film / analysis video about the crab featuring cameos from 40 other content creators and a ton of fans, plus an elaborate YouTube poop-esque ending with original vocals that took me 8 months to put together. Maybe you should check that out if you haven't already. Okay, now that's it. Bye! Yeah, I know, right? What the fuck? Please forgive me, Lord, for I have sinned. But I just really liked the Will Smith Pigeon movie. I remember when the trailer for this thing dropped and everyone was so blown away by how cool all the spy stuff looked, myself included. And then he turns himself into a pigeon. Funniest shit I've ever seen. Yeah, talk about a movie that looked like it had so much potential only to flush all that down the drain with such a dumb premise. So I didn't check it out until I had to make this list, and I am deeply beyond shocked to report that this was kinda good, actually. Obviously, the best part is the very beginning when it does feel like a legit spy film. Like, this shit is really well animated and choreographed and exciting. It feels nothing like anything Blue Sky's ever made before, and it's pretty wild tonally. Like, did you ever expect to hear the Yakuza mentioned in a kid's film? Cause they sure do mention them here. This shit is actually great, and Will Smith is a pretty charismatic spy guy. Then, of course, we gotta get to the pigeon shit, and this is where I expected the movie to go downhill hard. But, I don't know, man. It's not nearly as good, but it's still pretty fun. Like, the dynamic between Will Smith and Tom Holland is charming, and I like how they have to rely on each other while also trying to come together and understand each other's perspectives. How Tom Holland is a pacifist who likes to rely on goofy weapons, while Will Smith just wants to kill people. Yeah, this movie has no problem killing people and mentioning how many people Will Smith killed. It's kinda cool, actually. We do have typical poop and pee and shit and gross jokes, because of course we do, and those suck as always. But I feel like it could have been way worse. Like, there's these pigeons who bond with Will Smith Pigeon and help him out, and thankfully, they don't talk. I feel like this was the perfect opportunity for Blue Sky to add in more shitty, annoying celebrities, but I guess they just figured the two charming ones they had were enough. So these sidebirds are completely silent, which is perfect. Silence is bliss. Shut the fuck up, Slug from Epic. You're so annoying. Oh my god. The villain isn't great, unfortunately. They definitely could have developed his backstory a little bit more, and the ideological conflict he presents doesn't really feel earned. Also, he frequently disguises himself as Will Smith, which...
Is that fucking blackface, dude?
I also feel like while the action set pieces are mostly pretty great throughout the whole movie, the last one during the climax is a little muddled and all over the place, but it's not bad. Aside from the terrible lowest common denominator humor, a lot of the jokes in this were actually kind of funny and made me laugh. Tom Holland's character is kind of a big screw up, but he's not frustrating to watch. They actually execute that archetype in an engaging way that makes you kind of feel for him. That whole pigeon shtick isn't too bad, honestly, and they resolve it before the third act, so we actually get to see Will Smith as a human again. That's pretty nice. Yeah, I can't believe I'm saying this, but Spies in Disguise is indeed a good movie in spite of its faults. And I extremely can't believe I'm saying this, but I consider it to be the best Blue Sky movie. It's a 7 out of 10.
Huh. You know, that doesn't sound right. There's gotta be something even better than funny Will Smith pigeon movie, right? Oh yeah, of course. I completely forgot the true greatest Blue Sky movie of all time. Rio 2 is the greatest film I've ever seen in my life. And I didn't even like it the first time I watched it. But to be honest, it was only after you guys left so many passionate comments about it that I started to reconsider my position on it. I mean, you guys really have strong feelings on this movie. And you know what? You successfully changed my heart. I now consider Rio 2 to be the best movie of all time. When I saw Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, this is the movie I thought I was gonna get. So let's talk about the absolute best aspect of the film, the story. Will Smith Bird is a lion, but then they find out that the rainforest is being closed down. So the lions figure that if they bring Jermaine Clement Bird to justice and get the reward money, they can use that to save the Jewish people. All throughout this introduction, I was shouting, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant! This is a fantastic setup! And on top of that, the setup for the rest of the story is actually pretty good too. Jermaine Clement has a deal with the underworld so that he can take control of Rio. But Lord Big Boss, the ruler of the underworld, not to be confused with the guy from Metal Gear Solid. That's just actually the name of the villain from Rio 2. Trust me, Kojima wishes he could write something as good as Rio 2. Stupid hack. Anyway, Big Boss has a particular interest in wiping out all the trees. Why? Because the prophecy foretold that a tree is the only thing that can destroy him. So he sends his soldiers to perform mass genocide. But one family wants their tree baby to live, puts him in a basket and sends him floating down the river. Where, oddly enough, the basket comes across the comic relief birds from the first movie. They tell him that it's okay to run away from your problems and shut up and eat his garbage. Years later, Mark Zuckerberg as a bird grows up and realizes that the rainforest is being closed down. He leaves his family behind and makes a deal with Will Smith Bird. They'll make it look like Will Smith Bird kills Chris Rock Zebra, and thus he can disguise himself as Shrek and start a new life over. But that doesn't last for long as God himself, played by Bruno Mars, yeah, wasn't that fitting casting, comes down and tells Will Smith Bird that he is to be the deliverer of the Jews. So the journey is on to fight off tree frogs, soccer birds, and rescue Anne Hathaway Bird, played by Eddie Murphy. Let's talk about the good stuff, cause honestly, there's a lot. Let's talk about what everybody remembers, the epic musical number in the middle of the film. As you can see, they used real lions and animals to film the movie, but the environments are all CG. So the movie was literally made with lions and birds and shit, plopped into a big green screen room. Amazingly, this did not affect the lion's ability to act because Will Smith is a professional, thank you very much. Anyway, the musical number here is completely original and it even won the Oscar for Best Original Song. It's honestly so good that I'm just gonna sing it to you. Here's my epic cover. Okay, so that's Will Smith Lion, he's voiced by me, and that's Jesse Eisenberg, also voiced by me. And finally, we have Anne Hathaway Lion Bird, played by Eddie Murphy in the movie. But for the purposes of this cover, she's voiced by Diana DeGarmo! Also, I'm only going to use the highest quality mic for this cover. Ahem. Alright, here we go, baby. Also, I'm recovering from a cold while I record this, so it's going to sound amazing. Will Smith Bird, Jesse Eisenberg, I'm Will Smith, that's hot, you suck, I'm not going to Rio, you can't make me. Simba, Will Smith Bird, Will Smith Lion, you gotta go to Brazil, you gotta come with me. No, I don't want to go to Brazil, because I'm Will Smith, all that's hot, keep my lion's name out of your mouth. Hey, I'm Jesse Eisenberg, and I say to Facebook, I'm gonna be a mighty king of Rio 2 because it's based. Well, I've never seen the King of Rio 2 because it's a good movie. I'm gonna be the main event, and in Rio 3, I'm brushing up on Rio 1, I'm working on Rio 4. Thus far, a rather fucking terrible thing. Oh, I just can't wait for Rio 12. Whoa, we can't even get to that yet. We gotta make Rio 3 first. No one's saying do this. Now when I said that, no one's saying be there. Not zebras. Now saying, hey, wait, there's no zebras in the rainforest. See here. Now see here. Free to run around all day. We're free to do it all my way. Alright, shut up. I think it's time that you and I arranged a heart-to-heart. Fuck you. Kings don't need advice from stupid fucking idiots. If this is where the Rio franchise is headed, county out. Out of service, out of Rio 5, I can't even be in Rio 6, because my character got killed off in Rio 4. Oh, I just can't wait for Rio, more Rio. Oh God, I love Rio. Oh my God, Rio 2 is the best movie. Everybody look. Oh wait, no, I don't think it's the time for that yet. Hey, it's the giraffes. Everybody look at the giraffes. Standing giraffes light. I'm Will Smith. No, Jesse Eisenberg. I'm Jesse Eisenberg. Haha. I'm Heisenberg. Yeah. Jesse Heisenberg. Oh, how has nobody made that joke before? Holy shit. Okay, everybody look left. Everybody look right. Everywhere you look, I'm staying in the spotlight. Fuck you. Let every creature go for broke and sing. Oh, wait, no. Now, okay, yeah. Okay, now. Let every creature go to sing. Let's hear on the wing. It's gonna be King Koopa's finest fling. Oh, I just can't wait for the crossover between Rio and Sing. Oh, I just can't wait for the epic thing. Oh, I just can't wait for Rio 2, the Snyder Cut. Okay, I think that was good. That's my cover. Thank you for coming. Did you notice how the last shot of the song is of a blue sky? Mic drop. Well, I think I made my point. Rio 2 is the greatest movie of all time, and I want to thank every single one of its fans for helping me realize this. I never would have thought about this movie again if you guys didn't leave all those comments about it. I previously had no strong opinions on it whatsoever. But you know what? You guys are right. I should have passionate feelings about Rio 2. And now I do. So thank you all for helping me realize that. It's the most perfect sequel ever made, and I, for one, can't wait for Rio 47.
You're afraid that you will never be as strong as Darth Vader.
Yep, everyone knew this was coming because everyone pretty much unanimously agrees. There is no greater level in this game than Darth Vader, and it's extremely clear to see why. For such a generally easy game, this last level of Revenge of the Sith is hard as balls. It's so difficult to survive the opening segment on your first attempt. You're given a limited time to escape the center room before its supports collapse. The platforming later on is tricky and you'll sink in the lava if you stand in place for too long. Basically, there's no time to breathe in this level. You've always got to keep moving. And that's perfect for an adaptation of the Obi-Wan and Anakin duel.
The mini-kits in this level are all over the place in arm's reach because there is no time to have any sort of puzzles. Although they did include the room where Anakin killed Wat Tambor, but it's still in the part with the ticking clock. Which, to be honest, is the room where you have the most leeway. There are no breaks in this level. It's just go, go, go! Otherwise, you're going to have to restart each segment over and over and over and over again. But it's not overly frustrating. When you die, the checkpoints are well spaced out, and it's got like a Cuphead vibe where you can hardly ever blame the game for your deaths. You just need to get good, and you do. Each and every attempt, you get a tiny bit further until, finally, in the corner of your eye, you spot it. The high ground! The story reason for Anakin and Obi-Wan teaming up makes perfect sense. They can't fight because there's nowhere safe to fight. But if they work together, I'm sure they can discover a somewhat stable place that they can kill each other.
And they do, because once you reach the end of the level, your final opponent is your co-op partner. You're both given a plethora of hearts and tasked with killing each other. That's just so amazing and such an immensely satisfying way to cap off this brutal challenge that you just helped each other through. It's time to remember why these characters are both here and ultimately allow them to face off against each other. This part is also really fun in free play single player because you're now in a boss fight with whichever wacky character the CPU happens to be right now. And that can lead to some funny out of context screenshots. There is a minor flaw here that we noticed. Turns out if one of you falls in the lava, you respawn with all your hearts, which is kinda cheap. Just promise not to do that to the other person and it'll be fine.
Free play essentially gives the option to make it so that every single character in LEGO Star Wars is now a boss. That means you can make whatever dream battles you want official, or you can make a fight between the Ghost of Yoda and Gonk Droid. I bet all my studs that Gonk Droid dominates.
Yeah, you just can't top this level. It really is that iconic, and everyone knows it. From the genuine challenge, to the incredible music, to the sweet serotonin of that final duel. God, this is the stuff dreams are made of. Don't act like you didn't know it was gonna be him. Funky Kong will forever be the greatest character ever put in a Mario Kart game. As a kid, I didn't even know he had the best stats. I always just picked him because he was Funky Kong, man. He had the coolest design, coupled with absolutely zero chill in his voice lines, which are so filled with energy and so iconic. He belongs in the Mario universe due to its heavy overlap with Donkey Kong, but he's still disconnected enough to feel like a cool crossover pick. I mean, really, what other Mario spin-offs do you get to play as this funky monkey in? The list is pretty damn short, which is why his inclusion in Wii needs to be savored for all it's worth. I can't fully describe what an incomparable pleasure it is to play as Funky Kong. You just had to be there, man. You had to be there to bear witness to the most bodacious dude ever included in a racing game, let alone a Mario game. Funky Kong is God's greatest creation, and I would do anything to get him back in mainline Mario Kart. Him being in Tour is a good start, but it cannot be where his story ends. Good night, Tri-State area. Stay funky. There's just no beating the classic here. A New Hope's opening crawl is iconic, exciting, a perfect tone setter, a perfect story opener, just everything you could possibly want at the start of a movie, and more. Keep in mind that the point about drawing a straight line from the previous movie to this one is completely moot here. There is no previous movie. There is no previous Star Wars anything. This story just spawned out of thin air, and this opening crawl is your first introduction to this entire universe. And it manages to immediately hook you, right from the opening sentence, which is just so chillingly cool. It is a period of civil war. Ah man, it makes you feel like you're about to witness an Arthurian legend or a Shakespearean epic. But in space! Rebel spaceships, striking from a hidden base, have won their first victory against the evil Galactic Empire. It's such an immediately gripping concept. The idea that there's an underground movement opposing a space empire. You don't know much about either at this point, but your imagination has been captured and you're dying to know more. This leads perfectly into the second paragraph, which I think is my favorite paragraph in any of these crawls. During the battle, rebel spies managed to steal secret plans to the Empire's ultimate weapon, the Death Star, an armored space station with enough power to destroy an entire planet. I'm sorry, what? Can you imagine that? Can you imagine a space station that's so powerful it can just destroy Jupiter or some shit? That's fucking raw as hell. Such an absolutely terrifying concept, and the movie knows it, offering the best use of capitalization in any of these crawls. The emphasis being placed on Death Star is perfect, illustrating its sheer magnitude and terror, while also spicing it up by describing it as the Empire's ultimate weapon. They weren't kidding. Holy shit. The final paragraph rounds it all out by telling us that Princess Leia is being pursued by the Empire's agents as she rushes home, custodian of the stolen plans that can save her people and restore freedom to the galaxy. First of all, I love the unconventional use of the word custodian. It's very creative and it adds some texture to the text. Second, I'll admit that maybe it would be nice to get a brief description of who Princess Leia is. They could call her a secret rebel agent or something, or at least say what she's the princess of. But I don't think it's a huge deal since learning more about her is an intriguing mystery in the film itself. We don't really get to know a ton about her at first, and the crawl does reflect that, so it doesn't really matter too much. All you need to know is that she's the good guy desperately trying to flee the Empire's sinister agents, so you immediately root for her before you've even seen her. I also feel like there's some great dark foreshadowing in saying that the plans can save her people, since if she had safely gotten them to the rebellion in a timely manner, they could have destroyed the Death Star sooner, i.e. before Alderaan went kersplat. Even though Tarkin wasn't planning to destroy Alderaan until after they captured Leia, the Death Star still served as a threat to Leia's people, as well as all people in the galaxy. So yeah, she could have saved her people if she wasn't captured here and tormented by the destruction of said people. It's a small detail, but it's really intriguing and tragic. And of course, ending things off with restore freedom to the galaxy is perfect, establishing what she and the other rebels are fighting for, and signifying that the goals of the rebellion are greater than this one battle. It's heroic, thrilling, and a great way to close out this wonderful tribute to adventure serials, while also getting the ball rolling on one of the most beloved film sagas of all time. It's just such a masterful piece of art, igniting your imagination and getting you ready for all the excitement, terror, and wonder that is to come with this story. Everything about it comes together so well, and it's a true testament to its greatness that 45 years and 8 movies later, it still remains the best opening crawl in all of Star Wars. Weirdmageddon 3. Take Back the Falls. Disney Plus lists this as 2 different episodes for some reason, but that's bullshit and we all know the truth. This is the enthralling, exciting, double-length finale that the whole series has been building towards. I'll admit that it's not flawless. In particular, I really think Grunkle Stan either shouldn't have gotten his memory back, or it should have taken a lot longer than just a week. Oh, but actually, the tie-in book says your memory can come back if you're quickly reminded of things. Shut up! Put that in the episode or it doesn't count. Yeah, I mean, there's that, and Stan probably should have been more reasonable when they were trying to get the Zodiac to work. And then, like, that's it. That's all my problems. Everything else about this episode is just phenomenal.
Cock and ball torture!
Bill is more dangerous, unhinged, and entertaining than ever. And the gang's quest to defeat him with the Shacktron is just so cool. I love it when all the characters you've grown attached to over the course of a series band together in the finale to fight the main villain. And this is a perfect example of that. McGucket even learns about anime. I mean, what more could you ask for? Not only is the climactic fight and eventual defeat of Bill so strong, but the way this episode concludes each character's storylines is just so powerful. They don't rush through the epilogue at all, and they give each character's ending all the time they deserve. I think my favorite little detail is how Dipper and Wendy switch hats to remember each other by. Like, changing up their designs as an emotionally resonant way to signify that this is the last we'll see of these characters is just really touching. And like, if you somehow don't cry as the bus is driving away, I feel like you're definitely gonna cry when you read the words, Stan of War 2. Overall, this is simply the best episode of Gravity Falls, and the one that's stuck in my mind the most since my first viewing of the show. The ending is the most important thing to get right in any story, because the place these characters you've been following for a while end up in, more often than not, is how you're gonna remember them. And fortunately, this episode didn't just stick the landing, it soared in its conclusion. Out of all the Disney Channel show endings, I am a slightly bigger fan of the way Amphibia concluded in terms of where it left its characters in the end. But in terms of the actual episode, taking the epic final showdown with Bill into account as well as the emotional send-off, yeah, Weirdmageddon 3 is still the best Disney Channel finale episode overall, and my personal pick for the best episode of Gravity Falls. Oh yeah, I didn't rank all the shorts, but they're all good, and my favorites are Fixing It with Seuss because of the intentionally bad editing and green screen. That was pretty epic. Okay, that's it. Good night, Gravity Falls. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. On a completely unrelated note, Despicable Me 1! Out of Illumination's entire filmography, this one sticks out the most for one simple fact. It's actually pretty good. Yeah, even after all these years, I still really like it. And I cannot stress enough how seriously bizarre it is to watch this film in close proximity to the rest of this garbage studio's catalog. It's like I'm watching a movie with an actual tight plot, where each scene actually furthers the story along in some way, and there are character arcs and emotional moments that land, and it's pretty funny, and overall a good time? Seriously, who the hell made this movie? Because it sure wasn't Illumination. Well, my personal theory that I expressed in my Megamind video that came out over 3 years ago, holy fuck, was that since this was Illumination's very first movie, they weren't aware of the fact that they didn't need to try in order to make a profit. So they developed the movie's story in a similar manner to a Pixar or top-tier DreamWorks film, focusing on giving the story a strong emotional core and making the characters likable and funny. It wasn't until after the movie came out and Minions took over the entire world that they realized, hey, we don't need to waste all that energy that we put into this first movie trying to make these stories emotionally resonant or funny for anyone over the age of 5. We can just do Minion shenanigans, gobbledygook, look at us, we're so quirky, ooh woo.
What?
But yeah, rather than focus on the plague this movie inadvertently inflicted on cinema in the long run, let's just talk about the movie as is and why it's pretty good. First of all, I just really like Gru. He's such a fun protagonist and I love the voice Steve Carell puts on for him. It's become pretty iconic over the years. And not only is Gru really funny, but he has a legitimately really good character arc in this movie as he lets go of his villainy through his love for the Goyles. These 3 girls are so charming as well. I love the know-it-all one voiced by iCarly and the sassy lost child and the lovable Scrimblow Bimblow. It's just nice to see them all bond, even when the girls didn't expect to like Gru, and Gru didn't expect to like the girls. Ooh, I love the found family trope. The Minions are perfectly fine in this one. They're just charming background characters who don't take focus away from the main ones. There's only one scene with them in this movie that's a little too hyperactively focused on Minion shenanigans. And that's when they go to the store to get a new unicorn toy. And this scene right here is the blueprint. This is ground zero for what would become the tone of every Illumination movie to follow this one. It's genuinely chilling to stare into the eye of the beast and remember that this is the exact point where it all went wrong. But enough about that shit. Let's talk about the most amazing character of all time. Vector! I have no idea why, but Vector's existence just makes me lose it. I mean, he's Vector, committing crimes with both direction and magnitude. I have severe brain rot when it comes to this goofy villain dude, because whenever I see a meme involving him or see him activate his flight suit, or see him activate his flight suit, I just burst out into a massive fit of laughter. I mean, it's Vector! Honestly though, he's unironically a pretty good villain for this movie. He doesn't need to be a massive threat, he just needs to be funny and constantly able to one-up Gru, which he does since he's far younger and stuff. Now, I'm sure all you gentle minions in the audience must be saying, hey, wait a minute. In Minions: The Rise of Gru, they show in a photograph that he's a kid around the same time as Gru. How come the funny bank guy keeps saying Vector is younger than him in this movie? And how come he just generally looks much younger than him? Is Illumination really that dumb that they didn't go back to watch the first Despicable Me before making this prequel, and they just forgot how old Vector's supposed to be?
Well, Danny kind of forgot about...
Well, to that I say,
Balderdash!
I completely trust the integrity of the studio that brought us Hop and The Secret Life of Pets 2 and the Emoji Movie. Wait, that wasn't them. Could have fooled me. Obviously, these visionaries would never make such a careless error, which is why I am hereby proposing the Vector Grimwalker theory. You see, Mr. Perkins has clearly been cloning Vector and killing off each clone when they don't live up to his standards. The Vector we see in Despicable Me is completely different from the one pictured in Rise of Gru. But hey, that's just an objective fact, because there's no other explanation.
He kind of forgot about...
Also, fun fact, I'm just stalling for time at this point because I don't want to talk about the bad movies, i.e. basically every other movie Illumination has made. Whatever, this one's pretty fun. It's not amazing or super deep or anything, and it has some lame childish humor here and there. But by Illumination standards, it's downright miraculous. Megamind is still better, obviously, but you know, I'll take what I can get. Yeah,
I mean, it was kind of inevitable. In my mind, nothing will ever unseat Beauty and the Beast as the absolute peak of the Disney brand. It's just everything amazing about Disney films wrapped up in this absolutely perfect package. I adore everything about it, and I have no real issues with it. In fact, I'd like to take that a step further and talk about the Stockholm Syndrome bullshit that everybody claims is in this movie. Oh, it's terrible that she falls in love with her captor. Did you guys miss the part where she left the castle in the middle? Nobody in this movie was taking this whole Belle being a prisoner thing seriously. Not the Beast, not the servants, not even her. She wasn't locked up, no one was guarding her. She described staying at the castle as a promise she made, rather than an imprisonment sentence. And when the Beast saves her life from the wolves and then collapses, she could have left him to die and continued escaping. But no, she willingly chose to go back in order to save his life because he saved hers, which is what causes them to grow to care for each other, which eventually results in him officially giving her his blessing to leave. What about this are you not getting? Go pick on something actually problematic like Pocahontas instead of trying to contort this movie's story to fit your poorly thought out BuzzFeed clickbait critiques. Anyway, yeah, I adore just about everything in this movie. The story is incredibly well paced and beautiful. The animation is so crisp and vibrant and gorgeous. The characters are lovable and endearing, including the greatest bisexual sentient candle ever included in a film. Plus, this movie has Gaston, who's all kinds of epic. I love how he starts out as a haha goofy joke villain you enjoy laughing at, until you realize as the movie goes on that, wait, someone this boneheaded and backwards thinking having influence over an entire town is actually a really scary and menacing concept. Just a perfect villain for this story thematically. And then there's the songs, which are genuinely perfect. Not a single bad track. As long as you're not watching the shitty Human Again version of the movie. Belle is the sort of incredible opening number that every musical should aspire towards, establishing the setting, the main character, and the villain all in one gorgeous 5-minute song. Gaston is an absolutely delightful comedic villain song. Be Our Guest is insanely energetic and fun. The mob song is really chilling and sad, especially when you consider the world Howard Ashman was living in when he wrote it. And then there's the title song, which I don't think any Disney film has topped in terms of sheer beauty. It's not my favorite Disney song, but I think it might be the most magical, breathtaking moment in any of their films. From the vocals, to that camera pan, to the angels looking down from all high. Like I said before, whenever I watch this scene, I sort of forget I'm watching a movie. I don't know, man. I just love Beauty and the Beast with all my heart, and that's never gonna change. It always felt special to me from a very young age, but even if I were to remove nostalgia from the equation entirely, it still holds up as the single greatest achievement of Walt Disney Animation Studios. Number 1, Funky Stadium. The opening alone cements this as an all-time classic. Plus, there's so many ramps, half-pipes, tunnels, and wide-open areas that all come together to make something that fully lives up to the name Funky Kong. Incredible, exciting, and funky as hell, it's easily the best battle map in the game.
You just got Coconut Mall.
Coconut Mall is humanity's greatest achievement to date. This course absolutely blew my mind as a kid. Like, what? You can turn a shopping mall into a race course? That's insane! But they did it. A masterful concept that's beautifully realized here. There's nothing quite like desperately trying to figure out which escalator is the right one to take, or tricking off the fountain, or mushrooming your way through this open store shortcut, or seeing the words "Have a nice day" followed immediately by a death-defying jump into the parking lot below, where you then gotta dodge these Miis who might be some of the worst drivers on the entire planet. It's just incredible. Throughout my entire life, this course has always been my first choice whenever booting this game up because it's just magical. It captures the zany fun of Mario Kart perfectly through what is perhaps the most creative theme for a course in the series so far. There's tons of fun turns, trick opportunities, and different paths to take. Plus, it also helps that the Wii version still remains the best interpretation of this course to date, since 7 and 8 both took their turns neutering it a bit. As a result, the original still reigns supreme. Oh yeah, and this is my favorite music track in all of Mario Kart. Honestly, what else could it be? This course is beloved by myself and millions of other players worldwide. It's Coconut Mall, baby! Easily the best course in Mario Kart Wii. But not as much as number 1, Pipe Plaza. Oh god, what a cool gimmick, being able to pop in and out of pipes to shake other players off your tail. That, combined with utilizing the 2 layers of this course that are incredibly easy to switch between, make this the easy standout battle course of the game. Overall, a super fun, hectic as hell mode with 5 rad courses and Tilt-A-Cart to pick from. Whoa, what a shock! It's my favorite retro course from Wii. Who could have guessed that it would top this list too? DK Mountain isn't the flashiest course out there, and it doesn't really look too special at a first glance, but it is one of those courses that when you're playing it, you just get it, you know? Tight turns, boulders to dodge, an overwhelming sense of adventure and joy, good shortcut opportunities if you're bold enough, and that godforsaken, evil as all hell bridge. Just pray there's no Bowser shells or big banana peels on that thing. When you take it all in, it becomes incredibly clear that this course is way more than the sum of its parts. It's a thrill ride from start to finish, consisting of so many elements that make Mario Kart courses great. And it also helps that unlike Waluigi Stadium, it doesn't exist in the shadow of a future remake. The original is pretty on par with the Wii iteration. A couple extra ramps and half pipes don't really make that much of a difference here. And the tour version just looks kinda whatever, who cares? The original DK Mountain absolutely stands tall as the true peak of Mario Kart Double Dash's courses. Finally, Battle Course 4 is the best one. It may be a desert, but I like the Oasis theme here. It makes for fun hazards to weave between and hide from your opponent with. I think this will be a really cool addition to a modern Mario Kart game with underwater driving added. And it's pretty neat here. Sky Garden is the best Super Circuit course, and it ain't even close, honestly. There's just a certain level of majesty to this course that can't be touched. With gorgeous music, impeccable atmosphere, and a course layout that's just the right level of difficulty. There's plenty of space for you to be able to cut corners and drive the way you want, while still having enough cliffs for you to need to watch your step, and shortcuts for you to try and pull off, if you're bold enough. The layout of this course is about as perfect as you can get for a flat 2.5D racing game, and the aesthetic and background music are equally perfect. There's simply no topping this course in my eyes. It's about as magical and ethereal of an experience as you can possibly get on the GBA, and I fully understand the hype surrounding it. And I also understand the frustration people have with how it was adapted into Tour and Mario Kart 8. Ooh boy, do I have some words about that. But we'll save that discussion for a later date. Guys, I'm gonna be real with you. There was never any other real contender for number 1. Even if I ended up liking one of these other movies I had never seen before better, I'm physically incapable of ranking them higher than the film that was predestined to be number 1. After all the garbage this ranking put me through, I deserve an unquestioned, self-indulgent number 1 pick. It's a Disney sequel ranking. I already lost the moment I chose to watch all these films. I will have gained nothing from this ranking unless I choose to embroider the top spot of my list with the one film that means more to me than all the rest of these movies combined. Lilo and Stitch 2 and 101 Dalmatians 2 are probably better movies than this film, so I want them to take a good look at the coveted number 1 spot. This glorious position as the top dog of this ranking video. This status as the number 1 Disney sequel of all time belongs to someone else. Number 1 is The Lion King 1.5. Fuck you. It wins because nostalgia, which normally isn't something I indulge in, but I feel like we all have that one film that, even though we say we're not influenced by nostalgia, we nonetheless can't bring ourselves to criticize it because it was one of our most formative memories as a child. This is that movie for me. The more I think about it, the more I realize that as a child, Timon was kind of my hero. Something about this theater kid with huge ambitions beyond the life he had really resonated with me. I don't really know how else to describe it. I was just always inspired by this gay little meerkat choosing to take life by the horns and find something greater for himself out there. But more so than my own personal adoration for it in my youth, I just feel like this is a movie that pretty much accomplishes everything it sets out to do.
It's Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead, but with Simba's gay dads. It integrates Timon and Pumbaa into the existing Lion King film pretty seamlessly. Like, okay, Timon not knowing who Rafiki was in the original doesn't really make sense since he meets him earlier in this movie. But like, otherwise, I weirdly have no trouble believing this is a part of the story. Even more so than Lion King 2, which invented a whole new pride of scar-loving lions that came out of nowhere. Here, sure, this is happening in the background. Why not? Hell, you know how I said some sociopath out there should edit together a cut of all 3 Beauty and the Beast films? Well, why don't you just edit this movie together with the original Lion King? At least the animation will be consistent. I'm sure the movie itself wouldn't be as good, and the pacing would definitely be off if you inserted all the 1.5 content into the original. But, fucking, I want to see it. It's the Snyder cut of the Lion King cinematic universe. Make it happen, rogue editor out there. For real though, even though I don't want these scenes inserted into the original film for pacing reasons, I feel like this movie does legitimately give me more of an appreciation for Timon and Pumbaa raising Simba. Snail slurping is kinda gross, sure, but there's something so novel and heartfelt about the extent these two went through to keep him out of danger during his youth, as well as that random ass sunrise sunset scene. Watching this movie as a kid was actually the first time I experienced that song, to the point where I watched Fiddler on the Roof for the first time and turned into that Leo pointing meme. Speaking of that scene, it's really funny. And you know what else is really funny? The rest of the damn movie. Not every joke is a winner, but the stuff in this that makes me laugh hard. When Pumbaa sits on the remote and changes the movie to the shopping network. When Timon tries to distract Shenzi by proposing to her. The hilarious way Timon was responsible for ruining the I Can't Wait to Be King song. Pretty much Uncle Max's entire character. They got Jerry Stiller for this motherfucker. That's awesome. Plus Julie Kavner, Marge Simpson herself, as Timon's mom. She's really funny and kinda heartfelt in this role. I genuinely believe the connection Timon and his mom have, and their reconciliation towards the end is honestly really sweet. I like the montage where Timon and Pumbaa try to break up Simba and Nala but ultimately fail. They're literally doing the exact same thing as Mushu in Mulan 2, except here it's played entirely for comedy and not the crux of the fucking story. What else? Oh yeah, so obviously you can tell at a glance that the animation is legitimately up to snuff with the original film, which is hilarious considering how inconsequential and non-pretentious this movie's story is. But you know what else is up to snuff with the original film? The music. Oh man, the music! It mostly becomes licensed songs and repeats from the original film by the second half, all of which are pretty good and fitting in terms of tone. But holy shit, the original songs in this movie are bops. Everyone remembers how catchy Digatana is, and yeah, it is. Like, there was no reason to go that hard on it. But the same absolutely applies to Timon's I Want song. That's all I need. I fucking love this song. I made an AMV of it on my second channel with Reagan from Mob Psycho 100 singing it. It's such an unexpected gem. The melody is largely lifted from a cut song from the original film, Warthog Rhapsody. And honestly, that's a bop too. I like it better than Hakuna Matata, to be frank. I wish the entirety of That's All I Need got to be animated, but I guess they didn't have the budget for all that. And that's what my Reagan AMV is for, baby. I could probably go on about this film and how much it means to me, and how much the Virtual Safari is the greatest DVD extra of all time, but I suppose maybe an entire video dedicated to this film would suffice. I guess the bottom line I want to get across is, regardless of my nostalgia propping it up higher than it probably deserves, I just think it's genuinely, and rather unexpectedly, a good fucking movie. Like, a fun, endearing, worthy companion piece to the original. For having a premise that essentially just boils down to a series of cute little gags following the original film's comic relief, I think it genuinely has a great heart to it, which you can feel in the animation, music, voice acting, everything really. It feels like everyone making this was just really passionate and had a lot of fun with it. And that energy is infectious. This is without a doubt my favorite of the Disney sequels. And the fact that Timon has always been one of my favorite Disney characters probably plays a large part in that. But I can't help it, man. I wouldn't call this a great movie or anything, but I nonetheless love it with all my heart and could probably watch it over and over without ever getting tired of it. What else can I say? Hakuna Matata. Good night, Tri-State area. But literally none of these matter compared to the single best battle course in the series, Block Fort. They perfected a battle mode course in their second game.
incredible. It's like an obstacle course with multiple layers to it and bridges to connect to each section. There's so many places you could go, hide, dodge, all that good stuff. But what I really love is the psychological aspect here. You have 4 distinct colored fortresses, and battle mode supports a max of 4 players. So telling the rest of your friends that you're claiming one of these forts, and then defending it from anyone who encroaches on your territory, is unbelievably fun. And the course itself is made even better by the rule set, which to this day hasn't been topped by any other battle mode. There's no computers and no time limit. You all have 3 balloons, and you gotta pop the balloons your opponents have. And once someone loses all their balloons, they don't come back. It's elimination based, baby. Oh, so what? They just sit there and watch their friends have fun now? No, man. They respawn as a bomb car, and now they get to cause some chaos by trying to blow another racer up. That's hilarious. Like, this is how you do a damn battle mode, and no Mario Kart since has gotten it as right as this one. I'd argue that battle mode on Block Fort specifically is the single best multiplayer experience on the Nintendo 64. I'm sorry guys, but the number 1 pick was obvious for me. 15 of the 16 courses in this game do not have a train. Calamari Desert, train ahoy! This is my favorite course because train, and I refuse to explain myself any further. Okay, fine, I guess I will. This, to me, is the quintessential desert course. One that doesn't rely on the fact that it's a desert as the main selling point. Because how exactly is that a selling point? These biomes are usually so boring and forgettable. But Calamari Desert subverts the typical mediocrity you'd come to expect from this type of course. Which is crazy considering how it was the first desert track ever put in a Mario Kart game. They really just peaked at the beginning, huh? And let's go over its other positive attributes real quick, so you don't think I'm biased because train, even though I totally am. The music, for starters, is impeccably iconic. Lighthearted and adventurous at the same time, it's something I could listen to for ages without getting tired of it. The curved trail allows you to use mushrooms and stars to cut corners to your heart's content, which is a boon for any course. Basically, every part of this track has a shortcut if you've got the right item for it. The aesthetic is shockingly gorgeous. Like with most deserts, you'd expect the sands to be tan and bland, really matching that typical New Super Mario Bros. Desert color scheme. But here, look at this, man. Look at the beautiful orange ground textures and equally beautiful skybox. It's so pleasing on the eyes, and it just makes you feel like you're on an adventure through this magical land. If this was all the track was, it would still be in the top half, but maybe not number 1. But that's where train comes in. Oh, baby. Oh my god, I love train so much. Do you risk going for it if the train is about to cross your path? Or do you stop and wait for it to pass? It's a classic conundrum in movies and TV shows that's been brought to life in exquisite fashion here in Mario Kart. The amount of fun unpredictability this locomotive provides makes this easily one of the most memorable and special courses in the whole game. Not bad for a Mushroom Cup course. That's pretty wild. And yeah, going off the beaten path and following the train into the tunnel in order to satiate your curiosity is extremely fun as well. It all adds up to a track that's iconic for all the right reasons. Easily my favorite Mario Kart 64 course, and one that I hope comes back in every game in the series from here on out. In the end, I gotta give the ever so slight edge to Return of the Jedi, the final Star Wars movie, the last one they ever made. It's the final movie ever released to have the word Jedi in the title, so I guess you could call it The Last of Us Part 3, because it's the conclusion of a trilogy, and also Pedro Pascal is in The Last of Us and Star Wars. Hope that wasn't too confusing for you, because there will be a test later. So I really like 3-So in this movie. He spends the entire first act completely out of his element and terrified of all the wacky nonsense afoot at Jabba's palace. It's adorable the way he just knocks on the door and convinces himself no one's home. And equally so when he finds out Luke is giving him the Jabba and he tells R2 that's the wrong message. Like, I think that's a really underrated joke. Cause for what other purpose would Luke record a message giving 2 droids to Jabba as a token of his goodwill in order to get Captain Solo back? Nah, R2, that's the wrong message. It was for a completely different scenario. It's probably one of my favorite 3PO jokes in the whole series, honestly. His brief stint as translator droid is also hilarious. Like, something about this prissy, cowardly droid being the interpreter for this dangerous gangster is a hysterical juxtaposition. And I love the part where Jabba gets so mad he just knocks 3PO over. As much as I enjoy 3PO during this phase of the film, I'm struggling to really think of the reason why he needed to be included in Luke's plan outside of giving him screen time. Like, Luke only needed R2 in on the plan to give him his lightsaber, so why bring Goldenrod along at all? I don't know, nothing about Luke's plan in this movie makes any sense anyway, so it's okay. This man is playing 4D chess with our minds, and we just have to accept that. Anyway, there's a lot of great gags with him on the sail barge as well. Like when they just cut to Salacious Crumb eating his eye, or R2 knocking him off a cliff. This might be the funniest Star Wars movie, honestly. If we're not counting ironic meme enjoyment, that is. After that, we transition into the teddy bear phase of the film. Everyone's favorite. And this is where 3PO really shines. If they say that he's a god, that's what he is. The whole gag of the Ewoks worshipping 3PO and the ensuing banquet in his honor slays me. It's the quintessential example of just how wacky the scenarios this silly droid dude gets into are. And the fact that his loyal subjects don't listen to him when he tells them to set the gang free is honestly a perfect summation of how pathetic his character is. Even the people who think he's a literal god ignore his direct request and don't believe him when he says he'll use his godlike powers on them. If that isn't a certified 3PO moment, I don't know what is. On top of all that, we also get a ton of classic salty interactions between him and Han, just to round out a really fun scene. But I think the one thing that solidifies this movie as having my favorite use and depiction of 3PO is this. The scene where he tells the Ewoks stories of the gang's previous adventures. I always really loved how it called back to his line in A New Hope, where he tells Luke he's more of an interpreter and not very good at telling stories. How about that character development, huh? I don't know if he's doing the sound effects in this scene or if R2 is playing them, but either way, they're scary accurate. But more than that, this just feels like the perfect scene to wrap up the trilogy with, recapping all the exciting and dangerous adventures we've seen our favorite heroes go through, and inspiring a new group of freedom fighters to take up their arms and join the rebellion. It's kind of like the precursor to that Broom Boy scene in Last Jedi, but I always preferred this one and wish more people talked about it. It's a really nice way to round out the overarching story and cement 3PO as just as legendary of a hero and rebel as his friends. And I think it's my favorite scene in terms of how it features the character. Finally, he even gets a moment to shine during the climax, presenting his outward cowardly persona with the words, "We surrender," which ends up being the signal for the Ewoks to come out and start wrecking shit up. A very satisfying last significant thing for 3PO to do in this film. Honestly, I'd argue that this movie used him more effectively than it did Han. So yeah, despite his increased relevance to A New Hope's plot, I do think I gotta give the edge to Return of the Jedi for being the single best Star Wars movie of all time, if we're judging them by their use of C-3PO and no other criteria. And number 1, Block Forts. Oh look, they brought back the best battle course from 64, and pretty much the entire series. Awesome. It's bizarre how bad so many of the retro race course selections in this game were, and yet they picked the literal 2 best options ever to bring back for battle mode. You'd think they might have felt obligated to sprinkle some Super Mario Kart shit in there, but you know what? I'm not complaining. Block Fort isn't quite as good aesthetically, but otherwise, pick a fort to become king of, and get ready for some of the most fun you can possibly have with your friends playing a Mario Kart game. There's no required teams or time limit bullshit. The only thing you're missing from 64 is turning into a bomb car when you die. But you know what? It's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. Shout out to Block Fort for being the pinnacle of battle course design in every universe. Yeah, I mean, like, come on. There were no other options for number 1. Waluigi Pinball remains the absolute GOAT from Mario Kart DS. It just does everything right, sporting one of the most unique concepts for any track in the entire series, a psychedelic cavalcade of bright neon colors, special item roulette sound effects that only play on this course, and a plethora of bumpers, flippers, and pesky pinballs to dodge. I was admittedly a doubter when I first gave this course a go in its Mario Kart 7 iteration. Not because of any changes specific to that version. Nah, I just found it annoying whenever I was blindsided by pinballs I had no chance of seeing. I just didn't see the appeal of that. But I was a fool. That extra element that forces you to plan out your route far ahead of time, whether you're racing down the metallic track against a ball in the center lane, or you're on the floor where the balls are traveling every which way with no rhyme or reason, you always need to be on your toes. And if you pay enough attention, you can formulate an optimal route in your mind that usually differs between each lap. That's what I call a dynamic course. It just feels so alive, like you're always jolted awake by this candy-coated thrill ride. The turns are sharp and satisfying, the music is relentlessly energetic, the essence of Waluigi can be felt in every inch of this debaucherous wonderland. This is undoubtedly the crown jewel of Mario Kart DS, my favorite course in this entire game. And number 1, Woohoo Town. Is anyone surprised? An inspired choice with so many landmarks, places to run and hide, places to duke it out, and it takes place at night to complement the other Woohoo courses being at daytime and sunset respectively. Just outstanding. No notes with this one. It's got an excellent layout for a battle map, and it's an overwhelming source of Wii Sports Resort nostalgia. A winning combo for sure. Yeah, I mean, obviously. 3DS Rainbow Road is a strong contender for being the single best track in the entire series. It's just untouchably majestic, offering all the whimsy and wonder of the previous Rainbow Roads, while also adding its own unique spin to the proceedings. It's a space adventure, an adventure in space! It benefits so greatly from being a 3-section track, cramming in so many wonderful sights and sounds. You drive past all sorts of moons, hop on a beautiful bouncy mushroom, and then glide onto the rings of Saturn. Before you even have time to process how cool that is, you're on this big moon with craters to trick off of and chain chomps to avoid. All that excitement builds up to the final section, where you land all the boosts on this tunnel and hope you finish it off by hitting the glider ramp, because that lets you soar through the air and get boosts on these launch stars. It's crazy how this course could have easily just cashed in on Galaxy fan service, i.e. the main thing Rosalina's Ice World had going for it. But no, it used those elements sparingly in service to a grander, more unique vision, an astonishing, unforgettable experience. Maybe not quite as brutally difficult as the Rainbow Roads of the past, but it's so awe-inspiring and memorable that it's easy to give it a pass in that department. Without a doubt, the best course in Mario Kart 7, and one of the greatest of all time. And the best one is 2, solely because it doesn't have any glaring issues. Still not great though. Guys, I genuinely never in a million years would have expected this, but my number 1 favorite course in Super Mario Kart ended up being Mario Circuit 2. That's right, Mario Kart 7 fans, stay winning. This game has every best course there is. Except DK Mountain and Sky Garden, but all my other favorites are here. So why the heck would I ever choose Mario Circuit 2 as my favorite Super Mario Kart course? It's because of the big boost, let's be honest. Before they installed a glider section on this track, it provided a massive jump for players to leap over the part of the track you just raced through. It's the only course in the game with a huge jump like this. And I'm gonna be honest, if I was playing this game in 1992, I'm pretty sure that shit would have blown my mind. And it's not just a thrill ride, you have to angle it properly and make sure you don't hit the pipes on the left when you land. And you can see other racers on the track below you sometimes. This is the shit, man! As someone who's already exhilarated by the use of the feather compared to the rest of Super Mario Kart's ho-hum gameplay, it should come as no surprise that the only thing more exciting to me than a jump is a super jump.
Obviously, this would be a moot point if the rest of the layout of this course wasn't good. But it is. It's not too short, not too long, the turns aren't too sharp, nor too simple. There are obstacles and shortcut opportunities. It's a good-ass course. Even if it didn't have the big jump, it would still probably be in my top 5 and be my second favorite Mario circuit after 4. But with the big jump, oh baby, this is peak. This is undoubtedly my favorite course in Super Mario Kart. There's nothing quite like it in this game, and I'm happy 7 kept its legacy alive. Am I crazy, or does the elevator attendant in this movie look like Doug Walker? Seriously, I think I'm onto something here. Anyway, I'm gonna be totally honest, nothing else even stood a chance at the number 1 spot. The Grand Budapest Hotel is one of my top 15 favorite movies of all time. Maybe even top 10. It's a masterpiece. I love it. My whole family loves it. We watched it all the time. We would nickname Patrick Lobby Boy solely because of this movie. I've seen it more times than I can count, and you know what? I haven't seen it nearly enough. Spreading the word about this movie to more people was honestly one of my main motivations for making this entire video. The Grand Budapest Hotel is Wes Anderson's most complete film. It's not his best looking live action film, that's French Dispatch. It's not his most emotionally resonant film, that's Royal Tenenbaums. But it manages to come in second place in both categories. And doing so is what makes it his strongest overall package. The sets and costumes contribute to this colorful, candy-coated wonderland, with some of the most delectably memorable shots any movie has ever graced me with. And there's strong emotion as you get swept up in the lives of these wonderful characters, trying to uncover a murder conspiracy amidst the backdrop of creeping fascism. Among the usual delightful Wes Anderson absurdity, you feel the struggles of our two leads and you feel the bonds they form. And said leads are perhaps this movie's greatest strength. My favorite character in any Wes Anderson film is Monsieur Gustave, played by Ralph Fiennes in my absolute favorite role of his. A delightfully flamboyant and saucy concierge with a heart of gold. He's equal parts hilarious and heartwarming. You love to see him gradually break his veneer of pretension to reveal the soft-hearted man buried deep down. All of which comes out as he grows more attached to his lobby boy, Zero. Before Tony Revolori walked in front of a bad green screen effect in Spider-Man No Way Home, his breakout role was the plucky and ever so loyal closest confidant to Gustav. I could watch these two go on quirky misadventures forever. They're both so endearing and have such great chemistry. But by some miracle, my favorite Wes Anderson characters have also been paired with my favorite Wes Anderson story. His most ambitious and adventurous to date, in fact. There's murder, betrayal, shootouts, ski chases, prison breaks, delicious pastries, Willem Dafoe is the scariest fucking bounty hunter in all of cinema. And not only is this his most exciting story, it's also his funniest film by far. His other movies have plenty of great comedic moments, but with this one, oh my god, every other minute something is making you laugh. It's got some of the best jokes I've seen in anything, honestly.
Where's Celine? What? She's dead. We're reading her will. Oh, yes, of course.
Like, seriously, if you assumed Wes Anderson movies were too artsy or pretentious for you, you really gotta check this one out. It's a straight-up buddy comedy adventure, just with far more witty writing than that genre is accustomed to. I know I've been mainly talking about how fun it is, but it's not devoid of substance either. It's got a wonderful multi-layered framing device that subtly shows off how wonderful it is to pass stories down through the generations. We also get to experience the pain Zero feels recounting this tale without fully knowing why it's so painful for him yet. A wonderful and intriguing hook. And of course, we get to see firsthand how fascism strips institutions like the Grand Budapest of their soul, and ultimately results in other tragedies over the course of the film. It's a movie as rich with meaning and nuanced tragedy as it is with laugh-out-loud moments, essentially offering everything you could possibly want out of a movie. The story is exciting, the cinematography is stunning, the sets are immaculate, the characters are amazing, the score slaps, it's funny, it's sad. I could rewatch it any day of the week and still have a good time. It's the goddamn Grand Budapest Hotel. My pick for the greatest Wes Anderson movie ever made. This is one of those rankings where the number 1 spot was clear from the start.
Schindler's List is arguably Steven Spielberg's most acclaimed film of all time, garnering countless accolades and even being his only film to win Best Picture. Very fitting, since it also happens to be his best picture. While he's made plenty of masterpieces across a variety of genres, this is the sort of film you would never imagine he had in him. Unflinchingly brutal and dramatic, filled with endless despair and sorrow. It's compelling to watch a man go from a selfish capitalist to a heroic figure who can no longer ignore the suffering around him. But it's hard to be inspired due to the abject hopelessness and horror of the film's subject matter. The lives Schindler saved are precious, and they make for an unfathomably powerful ending sequence. But the truly terrible loss of so many other lives, brought about by the greatest force of evil on the planet, is impossible to ignore. I don't really think I can say much more on this film, for obvious reasons. To summarize, the performances are excellent. It remains gripping and compelling throughout its entire 3+ hour runtime. The black and white cinematography is uniquely stunning. And unlike The Color Purple, where Steven Spielberg felt like the wrong choice to portray the struggles of these people, here it's abundantly clear that this was his story to tell. It's stunning to see him treat the story with such severity after he made those campy adventure serials that took the piss out of Nazis, one of which having come out a mere 4 years before this film. This is what I mean when I say that I didn't know he had something like this in him. Truly remarkable beyond belief. There's only one slight issue I take with an otherwise perfect film, and that's the shower scene. This stuck out to me as a somewhat odd, triumphant, hopeful moment that didn't mesh with how despair-filled the rest of the film was. It felt like Spielberg reverting to his old crowd-pleasing ways for a brief moment. But ultimately, it comes after nearly 3 hours of darkness and despair appropriate to the setting. It doesn't undo how effectively dramatic the rest of the film is. And maybe it's what a lot of people needed. A slight reprieve from the descent into hell this movie takes you on. Regardless, this is easily the greatest film ever made by Steven Spielberg. It isn't even close. No other movie in his insanely prestigious and iconic filmography can reach the heights of the power and mastery of Schindler's List. How did this come out the same year as Jurassic Park? How do you make both of these at the same time? Truly insane. And number 1, GameCube Luigi Circuit. The untouchable GOAT because it is so damn fun to hit racers going the opposite direction with items. Peak gaming right here. And number 1, Shine Thief. Nothing compares to the sheer chaos of trying to hold on to this shine sprite, as everyone on the map tries to hunt you down like you're John Wick or something. If you've never played this mode, you need to give it a try. But on which maps, you may ask? Well, here's my ranking. And number 1 is SNES Battle Course 1. I never in a million years would have expected that going into this game. But somehow, a Super Nintendo remake is the clear victor in every respect. This map is the perfect size, with the perfect amount of alternate pathways. Plus, you can use the feather to great effect here and jump over these walls. In Shine Thief, you can drive on the walls themselves, which is a great tactic. In Renegade Roundup, there's only one jail cell in the very center. This is the only map to do that, and it makes for such a unique gameplay experience with completely different strategies to the other maps. But my personal favorite thing about this one is the glider ramp. It's the only battle course to have one, and playing this mode in Bob-omb Blast, where you can gather 10 bombs, head over to the glider ramp, and then drop them all on unsuspecting players you fly over, is my absolute favorite experience in this entire battle mode. Again, it's so shocking how good this course is at basically everything. But yeah, SNES Battle Course 1 is my favorite map in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Number 1, Yoshi Valley. That's right, we're going in reverse order. This is the only one that mildly resembles a real battle map because of all its alternate paths. With that said, they couldn't even close off the section where all the paths converge and just use the split path part. Really? Whatever. At least this is the only one they actually made alterations to, making it possible to go backwards on what used to be small ramps in the original racecourse version. It still sucks, but it's like 25% playable. The best map this mode has to offer by far. I'd put it in D tier. With that said, everything else in this game is an F tier battle map. This'll be fun! I I don't think it could have been anything else. 3DS Rainbow Road is the first ever retro course to be my #1 pick for a game, which also makes it the first course to be #1 on 2 of my lists. And there's a very good reason for that. It's just flawless, and this remake is a flawless version of it. I guess the moon could be a little brighter, and they also took out the little sound effects that play on the boost panels at the start of lap 3. But those are my only nitpicks. Otherwise, they nailed this HD recreation of the best track in the whole series. The space background and the road itself are both simply gorgeous. Much like Wii Rainbow Road, it just enchants you with the beauty of the visuals and the music, while also coupling it with this thoroughly majestic journey across everything space has to offer. I don't think I have much more to say that I didn't already say in my 7 ranking. It's just indescribably brilliant. One that I'm so glad more people have the opportunity to experience now. For as negative of a reputation the Booster Course Pass frequently gets, I think it's really telling that 6 of my top 10 are from it. It had its fair share of stinkers, but I think the masterpieces it brought into Mario Kart 8 made it more than worth it. Hell, the entire DLC was worth it for 3DS Rainbow Road alone. It is undoubtedly my pick for the greatest course in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
It's showtime.
The perfect Wii Remote sound effect. Snake's iconic gravelly voice delivering an instantly iconic statement. The same one he made when he was first revealed for Brawl. I feel like it complements the Wiimote speaker perfectly, like you're hearing it over codec. And most importantly, nothing else quite gets me as hyped for a match than hearing these incredible 2 words expertly setting the tone for the brawl to come. Peak. Peak thing to hear coming out of your Wii Remote. And now, my #1 favorite TV show of 2023. I was gonna say in a landslide victory, but Blue Eye Samurai definitely gave it a last-minute run for its money. But in the end, #1 is Season 4 of Succession. One of my main motivating factors to make this video was to have an excuse to follow up my original Succession video and talk about this final season, which has solidified this as one of the single greatest TV shows of all time. There are at least 3 episodes and 10 scenes in this season that'll go down as all-time classics. It's actually kind of unreal how much I've continued to think about it over the past few months. It truly is unbelievable, and you really gotta get out now before I spoil it for you. Go watch Succession, you filthy animals. Anyway, it was an incredibly bold choice to finally bite the bullet and kill Logan 3 episodes in. But it paid off beautifully and gave the season so much more new life. The fact that one of the last things he said to them was that they're not serious people. Like, that's a fucking devastating insult. How do you come back from that? Connor's wedding had some of the most emotionally vulnerable acting I've ever seen in anything. Probably the series highlight for both Sarah Snook and Kieran Culkin. I could gush for days about all the little details in their performances. It was just such an unexpected and upsetting event to happen in the episode entitled Connor's Wedding. What a stroke of brilliance to have this happen here. From there, I thought Alexander Skarsgård's Madsen made for a memorable, slimy addition to the supporting cast. The election episode was tense as hell, and the perfect morality test for Kendall to ultimately fail at. And his funeral speech ultimately cemented how damaging the CEO position would be for his moral fiber. I also adore the finale, and not just because it mentions Lawrence Yee, who's my favorite minor character of the whole series. I'm gonna eat you all. Proceeds to do nothing threatening for the entirety of the show. Oh, Lawrence, never change. I want to spin off about this guy and how he created Volter before Kendall ultimately guts it. Make it on the same level of quality as Andor, just inexplicably this amazing, harrowing story about a minor character no one has ever thought about in years. Except me and my friends, we are big Lawrence Yee stans. No, but the finale was great because they got all that typical schmaltzy bonding and saying goodbye stuff you'd expect from a finale out of the way in the middle of the episode. Kendall, Shiv, and Roman just bonding as siblings, them meeting up with Connor and seeing that video of their dad. It feels like a curtain call, and it leaves you with a lot of warm feelings about these characters you're about to say goodbye to. And then everything goes to fucking shit in one of the most insane plot twists in the entire show. Everything is destroyed, you can just tell the relationship between these siblings is broken forever. And all because Shiv couldn't stand Kendall getting the glory. Man, you Roy siblings just can't get along, even when the company's at stake. The scene where they all argue and Kendall declares himself the eldest boy has lived rent-free in my brain ever since it aired. It's so damn amazing, showcasing how the fate of the company all comes down to childish bickering between the siblings. Logan was right. They are not serious people. Not nearly as serious as motherfucking Tom Wamsgams. Woo! He was my favorite character from the start. Then Shiv briefly took over that spot, but Tom got it back right before the big finale. My problematic king getting the top spot just feels so right instead of it going to one of the siblings. He worked his way up and sucked up to the right people, and it all paid off. And it's pretty insane that even in death, Logan fucking wins. He got exactly what he wanted. For the deal with Madsen to go through, and for Tom, the de facto confidant he replaced all of his children with, to take over the role of CEO. Simply insane. But, would you believe me if I said I haven't even talked about my favorite scene in the entire season? Nay, my favorite scene in the entire show. Nay again, my favorite scene in any piece of media released in 2023. Sorry to all the banger movie and video game scenes that occurred in this great year for media, but in my opinion, nothing compares to the scene from Season 4, Episode 7, where Tom and Shiv argue on the balcony. This blowout is what every interaction across the entire show between these two has been building up to. When I watched the trailer for the season and heard the line, "You have hurt me more than you could possibly imagine," I knew I was in for some transcendent shit when we got to this scene. And that's exactly what this was. An absolutely devastating breakdown of all the awful shit these two terrible people have put each other through and the toll it's taken on both of them. It's brutal. When Shiv says, "You took away the last few months I could have had with my dad," Tom's response is the line delivery of the year, in my opinion.
It's not my fault that you didn't get his approval.
Like, that pause, that damn pause makes you think he's gonna ease up and sympathize a bit. Like, it's not my fault he acted this way towards you, followed by an apology or something. But no, you didn't get his approval. Tom is the child and successor he wanted, not you. And then he follows that up with, "I have given you endless approval, and it doesn't fill you up because you're broken." Fucking hell, man. What? It's a monstrous conversation. On both of their ends, really. But Tom just destroyed her there. And then you contrast this scene with the ending, where Shiv willingly chooses that she'd rather be stuck in this loveless marriage that gives her close proximity to power, instead of letting her brother have the company. Just horrible. In the best, most compellingly dramatic way. It's an insane, but entirely appropriate conclusion for the series. Genuinely, this has been a show for the ages. If you haven't seen Succession, you owe it to yourself to check it out. Alright, let's cut the shit. You know exactly what number 1 is. It's the damn Dark Knight. Perhaps the single most iconic and influential movie of the 2000s. Some of you might be a little too young to remember this, but when this movie came out, the world went nuts. It was everywhere. Everyone, young and old, casual viewer and cinephile alike, was obsessed with this movie and completely in awe of how good it was. We were talking about it, quoting a ton of the Joker's dialogue, especially "Why so serious?" And I even distinctly remember finding a video that takes the Dark Knight trailer audio and puts Monsters Inc. footage over it.
Let's put a smile on that face.
But someone else made that. How did I react? I was 10 when this came out, and I think this was the first great new film I ever saw that wasn't just an animated Pixar or DreamWorks movie. This was the first film that made me say, wow, now that was a movie. I was obsessed with it. You better believe I dressed up as Batman that Halloween. When I got an assignment in my middle school digital media class to film a recreation of a movie scene, you better believe I would film an embarrassing remake of the Joker pencil scene, using random stuffed animals I had laying around. When I started to get into acting during my middle school plays, I would recite a ton of the Joker's monologues in this film, just to practice getting into a character. This movie had a hold on me. But when it comes to this list, I wasn't ready to just hand it the #1 spot and call it a day. I thought this and Inception were gonna be the top 2, based on my childhood feelings that they were just perfect movies. But upon rewatch with my adult sensibilities, I didn't like Inception quite as much as I remembered. But this movie? Nah man, this earns the #1 spot. It's kind of unreal how much almost everything here holds up from an adult perspective. Nolan made a movie that could feasibly be someone's favorite film of all time when they're a child, and then have it remain their favorite film of all time throughout their entire life. That's how good it is. Okay, I'll be fair though, no movie is perfect, and I think the consistently worst thing about this film is the fucking Christian Bale Batman voice. We know it, we love to make fun of it, it's just really bad. It kinda works if you view Batman as just this insane menace who beats the shit out of people, but if you ignore the Bruce Wayne persona, it's kind of impossible to endear yourself to a protagonist who sounds like this all the time. Where are they? But the reason I don't think that's a major issue is because this isn't really Batman's movie. But we'll get to that in a bit. First, let me air my other issue out. I don't really like how the use of mass surveillance in the end to catch the Joker goes uncritiqued in the narrative. I don't mean in the sense that I needed a character to straight up say, this is wrong, so the audience gets it. Because that's actually in the film.
This is wrong.
No, obviously it's a pretty immoral thing to do, and Lucius acknowledges that. But the thing is, it works. Batman uses it effectively to catch the Joker. And I don't know how I feel about the narrative not really presenting a downside to the use of this technology. You could say that Batman goes into exile after this, but that's not because of this crime. It's because he's taking the fall for Dent's crimes. I'm just not really sure what Nolan was trying to say with the effective use of something so similar to a certain controversial American political act. But I suppose Oppenheimer is indicative of his political maturity nowadays, so I guess it's fair to not fixate too much on this portion of the film. Okay, now to explain why The Dark Knight is peak. Simply put, this film does not let up. It's such a masterful crime thriller in the sense that there's no downtime. That's not to say it's all non-stop action and suspense. The characters do get chances to reflect on what's going on. But the thing is, you just never feel safe watching this movie. You never get to fully catch your breath after any of the Joker's insane schemes, because it's never too long before he's on to the next one. The way the film is structured makes it consistently engaging throughout its entire runtime. I genuinely will never understand how some people will claim that this movie is boring whenever the Joker isn't on screen. Like, did you just sleep through most of the movie or what? It's so fascinating seeing people's response to relentless terrorism and watching their ethical boundaries get pushed further and further. Watching Harvey Dent consistently get propped up as a status symbol, only for this plan to come crashing down once he gives into his urge for revenge, is intense and engrossing. I love how Nolan can take a character as inherently silly as Two-Face and make him work in a realistic setting by applying compelling commentary on morality to him. I love how the noble lie Batman chooses to adopt at the end in order to protect Dent's reputation is directly paralleled by Alfred choosing not to tell him the truth about Rachel's intentions. The scene where Rachel gets blowed up is so intense as you see her accept in that moment that she's gonna die, even though Bruce was trying to rescue her. Like, damn. I know I said I really liked Katie Holmes in this role, but like, Maggie Gyllenhaal is just objectively better, I gotta admit. I love all the excellent quotes that have reverberated in pop culture. You either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Some men just want to watch the world burn. I think they're pretty self-explanatory. This movie doesn't exactly have the densest themes or messages. They're pretty simple and yet insanely effective. This was one of the first times a comic book movie really felt like it was saying something about the state of the world, and it's so gripping as a result. But with all that said, yeah, we gotta talk about the star of the show here. I think it's fair to say that Heath Ledger as the Joker is the single most iconic performance of the 21st century so far. Something really shifted with this performance. Everyone was just blown away by how thoroughly he embodied this conniving, chaotic clown. And it's honestly on the level where I look at him and I don't even see a performance. Like, that's just the Joker, man. He completely disappears into the character and makes him seem like this unstoppable force of nature. He can't be reasoned with, he just wants to watch the world burn, etc, etc. I just love the fact that he has no history in this universe. No former identity or origin whatsoever. It's like he just spawned into existence one day to psychologically torment whoever he feels like. The image of him is effortlessly terrifying, and yet he's just so funny at the same time. It's a very different interpretation of the Joker than usual, but they get his essence so right. There's really nothing I can say about this performance that hasn't already been said. Like, it's the Joker, baby! You know just how incredible and how influential this performance is. And like, honestly, what else can I really say about the movie? It stood the test of time as one of the most beloved and talked about films in recent memory. Sorry if I sound like a normie for saying Nolan hasn't topped this one, but that's just how I feel. He hasn't. This is my favorite live-action comic book movie and my favorite Christopher Nolan movie. Let's not pretend it could have been anything else. R2 is absolutely the MVP of Empire Strikes Back. We all know this. But before we get to the biggest Hail Mary in the entire galaxy right at the end, let's talk about him and the rest of this movie. I've been saying over and over again throughout this video that R2 is Luke's trusted confidant. The little guy that's been with him through thick and thin. And the origin of the special bond these characters share is this very movie. Luke and R2 brave the unknown swamps of Dagobah together. And I know everyone gives Mark Hamill credit for doing such a great job acting against the Yoda puppet and making all of his interactions with Yoda feel incredibly real. But I think the same absolutely applies to the awesome rolling trash can as well. I love the way Luke bounces off of R2. Everything he says to him radiates so much warmth and charisma. For instance, I'm a huge fan of the way he delivers R2 that way. I'm also a huge fan of R2's little scope he uses when he's underwater, as well as when the swamp monster spits him out and he flies through the air. I feel like most of this video has just been me talking about how much I adore every little thing that R2 does, but I think that's just what happens when you're obsessed with a character. I'm sorry. I think I've done a pretty good job of holding in how obsessed I am with R2-D2 in all of my previous videos. Like, be honest, were you able to tell that he was a top 5 favorite Star Wars character for me? Before I move on to actually important stuff, we gotta talk about what is simultaneously the funniest R2 and the funniest Yoda moment. R2! I don't even think I need to explain this. This is just comedy gold right here. What makes it even better is that R2 and Yoda canonically knew each other already. Like in Clone Wars, there was an entire arc where R2 accompanied Yoda to random planets in order to find Qui-Gon's ghost. And one of those planets was Dagobah. Does R2 remember this planet? Does he remember Yoda? Does Yoda remember him? It's so tragic to see their significant bond eroded to this point. But what are you gonna do? Now that Yoda's in the picture, R2 mostly just sits back as Luke trains, but his presence is always reassuring. He's there to observe, with his little beeps and boops evoking curiosity as to what his master is up to. I think the noises he makes do wonders to enhance the mood of certain scenes, such as R2 excitedly beeping as Luke tries to lift the X-Wing, only for his disappointed wail signifying that Luke unfortunately failed. He's a nice supplemental part to the Dagobah arc, but clearly nothing he's done in this movie so far is enough to shoot it to the #1 spot, right? That's where the final act on Cloud City comes in. Separated from Luke, R2 just kinda wanders the city alone until he stumbles upon 3PO and the rest of the gang making their escape. So he just joins them. I'm a big fan of the ultra-specific scenario of character who just so happens to be nearby for unrelated reasons, joining a bunch of other characters' mission. It's so ultra-specific, I can't think of another example off the top of my head right now. But yeah, R2 just goes along for the ride and proves to be the most valuable asset they have. Obscuring the stormtroopers in fog, opening the door to the Falcon's landing platform. How are they gonna open that door without R2, Buzz, huh? You tell me! And then we finally arrive at the clutchest R2 moment of all time. He saved everyone's lives so many times across this series, but never before or since has it felt nearly as cathartic as this one pivotal moment right here. While he was chilling at the swamp, indulging in Yoda's ketamine stash the whole movie, the gang on the Falcon has been going through it. Over and over again, they try and go to lightspeed, but the hyperdrive generator just won't work. They try and fix it so many times, and nothing they do makes a difference. And it's no different here at the end, even after Lando insists that his crew fix the hyperdrive. I'm gonna be honest, I don't even know if they did or not. My personal headcanon is that they did, only for Vader's men to disable it. Either way, it still doesn't work. But that's where R2 comes in. Armed with the knowledge from the city's central computer that the hyperdrive is deactivated, R2 says, "F repairing my best friend, we got bigger problems." So he just casually rolls over to the hyperdrive, slightly turns a switch, and bada boom, he did it! It's a moment that gave me chills ever since I was 6 years old, because it just provides you with so much excitement and cathartic relief all at once. Finally! Someone who actually knows what they're doing is getting their hands on this hyperdrive. You get the sense that he probably could have repaired it all himself if he was there on the ship with them during the rest of the movie. But now that he's here, he has one of the most shining moments of heroism across all of Star Wars. The hyperdrive actually working is something you've been waiting for this entire movie. And after all that build-up, it doesn't disappoint. Masterpiece moment. Masterpiece movie. Masterpiece character. I love R2-D2, and Empire Strikes Back is definitely my choice for the best Star Wars movie in terms of using his character. And in general, but that doesn't factor into this ranking. Empire R2 maintains a nice supporting presence throughout, serving as a valuable companion to Luke and forming a bond that will continue throughout the series. And it all culminates with his greatest moment ever, maybe? Yeah, I'm thinking ever. Yeah, I think we all knew he wasn't gonna be topped. Syndrome is one of the all-time great superhero movie villains, marrying some truly heinous and evil actions with some insanely hilarious mannerisms and line deliveries. He of course starts out as the dorkiest fanboy ever known to man, constantly annoying Mr. Incredible as he tries and fails to prove himself a worthy sidekick. He's kinda like if r/Schaffrillas was consolidated into a single person, honestly. And then the movie flashes forward, and you kinda forget about him for a while. Until the big reveal that he's the mysterious benefactor requesting hero work out of Bob. It's all part of his plan to systematically isolate and destroy every single superhero as revenge for being shunned by Bob all those years ago. Yeah, he committed superhero genocide solely because of his bitterness and resentment towards one guy. That's genuinely insane. As memorable and fantastic as his screen presence is, the scene that perfectly lays out how sinister and ruthless he is doesn't even feature him. It just has Bob going through the records on his computer and seeing that his friends and colleagues have all been wiped out. It really hits different than any other scene the studio has concocted, going far beyond just being a signature Pixar sad moment and veering into some unexpectedly dark territory. And it all came from this, for lack of a better word, goofball. In spite of his murderous, sinister tendencies, Syndrome remains just as much of a goofy goober as he was in his youth. And the resulting mixture is just so tantalizing of a character and villain. After he sends out the lifeform scanner and it tells him Mr. Incredible has been terminated, I cannot get that smirk he gives out of my head. It's the perfect midpoint between being evil and a complete dork. And it's one of so many facial expressions and line deliveries that give this guy an almost overwhelming amount of personality. I mean, you really can't beat the 1-2 delivery punch of "And God and "Oh, this is just too good." To say Jason Lee killed it in this role would be an understatement. And speaking of killing, his relentless murder of all these superheroes is only outmatched by his gleeful indifference to killing children with a ballistic missile. We've had Pixar villains try and kill kids before, like Ernesto and Muntz, but to them it was more so a means to an end. They didn't seem to relish in it quite like Syndrome did. Ultimately, his plan to defeat his own robot and artificially make himself a hero goes haywire. But this pathetic display does nothing to diminish how twisted and vile he is. Rather, it perfectly suits the main conceit of the character, that he isn't a hero and can never become one.
That's not due to his lack of powers. Rather, it's a result of his actions and irredeemable moral compass. Some people tend to view The Incredibles' message as advocating for people who are born special to do special things that people who aren't born special just shouldn't aspire towards. I don't think that's really what the movie is saying just because the villain doesn't have superpowers, but that's just my read of the text, and others are equally valid. Ultimately, it doesn't do anything to diminish or discredit the unique brand of malice Syndrome brings to the Pixar canon. He is undoubtedly the most evil villain they've ever created, and I don't think anyone can really argue against that. And that sheer callousness, combined with an undeniable nerdy charm that never goes away no matter the circumstance he's in, makes for a villain so consistently threatening, so funny, so quotable, so memorable, that he undoubtedly stands as one of the greatest animated villains of all time, as well as easily the greatest Pixar villain. Much like how Happy Feet 2 was pretty much the unanimous bottom spot on every other George Miller ranking I found, every single one of them also happened to have the exact same top pick. The movie he made immediately after Happy Feet 2, as a matter of fact. And yep, I'm not about to be a contrarian on this one. Mad Max Fury Road is by far George Miller's magnum opus. His absolute greatest film ever. It really is one of the biggest filmmaking miracles of our time. Having a 70-year-old return to his franchise that he hadn't made a new installment of in 30 years, and inexplicably, against all odds, create the most balls-to-the-wall, insane action film that puts that original trilogy to shame. This would be like if instead of Crystal Skull, Steven Spielberg inexplicably came back with the most batshit, violent, adrenaline-filled Indiana Jones film that put the intensity of Temple of Doom to shame. Nothing about this film's existence and sheer quality makes any sense. But then again, as we've established throughout this ranking, nothing about George Miller makes sense. The man is operating at a level so fundamentally apart from every other director working today. You can almost always count on his movies being insane in one way or another. And in this way, that happened to be insanely godlike and brutally visceral. To this day, this is the only film George Miller got nominated for Best Director for. On top of the movie itself receiving a Best Picture nomination for a goofy, grimy action film. The Academy nominates blockbusters for Best Picture pretty frequently these days, but this is the kind of blockbuster that probably would have given the older members heart attacks. I'm still kind of in awe that they gave it the Best Picture nomination it totally deserved. Alright, let's actually talk about the damn film itself now. There's not much to say that hasn't already been said, but I'll try my best. What I love about this film is how it throws you into this insane world and doesn't feel compelled to explain a lick of it. Furiosa obviously fills in a couple gaps, but if you take Fury Road on its own, it throws so much insanity at you. There's a cult of war boys with white paint all over them, and then they spray shiny chrome paint on their mouth when they're about to die so they can make it into Valhalla. Why is that a thing? Why do they do that? Who gives a shit? It's cool. Who exactly is Immortan Joe? Why does he have that weird mask thing? Who gives a shit? He's awesome and he's the bad guy. That's all you need to know. Why is there a flaming guitar man constantly accompanying Joe's fleet of drivers? What purpose does that guy possibly serve? Say it with me now. Who gives a shit? It's the most awesome thing ever conceived in history. This movie doesn't care one bit about trying to orient you in this world. It's on you to get on its level. And the reason this works so well is because of how inherently simple the plot and universe is. Joe has a bunch of slave wives, Furiosa's trying to get them out of there. That's all the reason you need in order to get sucked into some of the most crazy action and awe-inspiring moments you'll ever experience in any blockbuster. That's on top of the sheer amount of ridiculously memorable quotes this movie throws at you. Oh, what a day! What a lovely day! Witness me! You arrive at the gates of Valhalla, shiny and chrome. I live, I die, I live again! Mediocre! I am the scales of justice! How the f*** are you not watching this movie right now? Oh my god! I also love how the movie gives everyone solid characterization without getting bogged down in it. Each of the wives has a distinct personality compared to the others if you pay attention. Beneath Furiosa's battered and intense exterior lies a hopeful heart that gets crushed once she reaches her destination. You feel like Max has healed somewhat from the trauma of losing his loved ones by helping Furiosa complete her mission. Honestly though, after multiple rewatches, I think my favorite character in the entire film is Nux. His interactions with Max are incredibly fun. He gets the mediocre scene, which might be the funniest part of the whole movie. But most importantly, his arc of rejecting the leader of the cult he was born into and finding genuine purpose in not only helping the wives, but finally seeing them as people rather than objects, it's just fantastic. His fate is inevitable, I suppose, but it feels so worthwhile as his life went out in service of a greater cause. Obviously, the main course of this film, however, is its non-stop action. And yeah, non-stop is a bit of an exaggeration. There are slower scenes to catch your breath with. But it just feels non-stop since the entire movie is the chase. The tension is kept consistently high, and as much as I enjoy the slower scenes, particularly the nighttime ones with the gorgeous blue color palette, the movie is very clearly at its best during the adrenaline-fueled, magnificent car battles. They are genuinely awe-inspiring. And to be totally honest, I think the sandstorm scene might be my favorite action scene in any movie ever. The part where the war boys get sucked up into the sky as somber music accompanies the vivid red clouds and flashes of lightning. Simply unreal. How do you even make that? And at the age of 70, no less. Movies are such a miracle, aren't they? There are a million reasons to adore Mad Max Fury Road. I could go on all day praising this movie to Valhalla and back. But I think you get the picture. Truly transcendent. Just as good as everyone has been saying for years. If you haven't seen this movie yet, literally what are you doing with your life? Go watch it now, it's peak.